If you have participated in our Dharma events, or you have been watching our live broadcasts and TV channel on YouTube, you will know that our current series of the visualization practice of compassion and bodhicitta contains all the core essences of the Buddhist Holy Dharma and the teachings of the Dharma practice that link with our daily lives. There are many essences or oral pith instructions of actual practices in this series. We will now continue. The first session of the visualization practice of compassion and bodhicitta series talks about the correct explanation of love bodhicitta of emptiness. Oral pith instructions on the great perfection, and the fallacies of the crazy wisdom. The second session is about the visualization method of initiating the programming in entering into the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood. This session is particularly important. The third session teaches the oral pith instructions in attaining the Dharmakaya Buddha of the teachings on the key of life and death. It explains that every time we die, that is, whenever we died in our numerous past lives, we would encounter some keys for life and death that can help us quickly attain Buddhahood. If you're able to master them, in fact, you can attain the Dharmakaya Buddha easily. You must watch this session. The fourth session explains the teachings on the key of life and death too. The oral pith instructions in attaining the Sambhogakaya Buddha, and the oral pith instructions and detailed explanation of the visualization practice on Heart Sutra. It is equally important. Then the fifth session talks about the teachings on the key of life and death 3. The oral pith instructions in attaining the Nirmanakaya Buddha, as well as a comparison on the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices between the Great Perfection and the Heart Sutra. This whole session is a very detailed explanation of how we should master the 3 consecutive different opportunities that we will encounter when we die. This is very important to any one of you. From the 6th session, we began to explain how the Diamond Sutra combines our Dharma practice in our daily life with the highest of the Dharma practice, and comparisons among the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices in the daily life by the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and the Great Perfection. The 7th session teaches the oral pith instructions of the visualization practice on the nature of the 5 aggregates as emptiness in the Heart Sutra. The 8th session teaches the oral pith instructions of the visualization practice for emptiness, neither existence nor voidness of the Great Perfection in daily life. While the 9th session explains how to use emptiness to visualize compassion in order to detach from emotional sufferings. The 10th session today will explain what is the difference between the Dharma practice of abiding in notions and that of non-abiding in notions in the Diamond Sutra. First of all, let us recapitulate the main points of this series, which have been repeated constantly in each of the previous 9 sessions. If we have no compassion, in fact, we cannot be reborn in the Buddha's Pure Lands. If we really want to practice compassion, it can be divided into mercy and pity. Mercy is to give others happiness, and pity is to remove people's sufferings. Most people still have a heart of pity to remove others' pain, so it ranks first. In other words, people will wipe out some of the characteristics of their Dharma nature in each of their rebirths, until when they are temporarily reborn in the human realm in this life. What we can see is that a little bit of their heart of pity still exists in the end. This is what remains after their Dharma nature or the grand ability of their Buddha nature is almost obliterated. Most of the people still have a little left. Therefore, if we want to practice to restore our Buddha nature or the grand ability, i.e. to attain Buddhahood, it will be easier to start from the heart of pity. So, we put it in the first place to lay the foundation for us to restore the Buddha nature. The second is to give others happiness, that is, sharing happiness with others or giving happiness to others. Fewer people have such an attribute. We can restore more of it by practicing the Dharma and learning, though. If we do not have bodhicitta, we cannot attain Buddhahood. What is the difference between compassion and bodhicitta, exactly? Bodhicitta is the supreme characteristic of our true Dharma nature. Because it has no physical entity, realizing and knowing, which is the perfect enlightenment, a kind of realizing and knowing, without any deviation. If we can restore 100% of this bodhicitta through our Dharma practice, it means that we can be free from any restrictions and never need to suffer in reincarnation. We can restore our grand ability to be free and in a state of eternal bliss. This kind of state is the state of attaining Buddhahood. However, because it has no physical entity, many people find it difficult to practice. As such, it is divided into the relative bodhicitta and the absolute bodhicitta. The relative bodhicitta requires you to aspire to save all sentient beings and observe the bodhisattva precepts. The precepts are like an alarm or a handrail. They are a path that guides you to restore the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment, so that you can attain Buddhahood. What is the difference between observing the bodhisattva precepts and observing other precepts, bhikshu precepts, in particular? The difference is that the bodhisattva precepts follow and protect you for countless lifetimes after you die. Once you have observed the bodhisattva precepts, those who follow the main practices of bodhisattva activities will think that you cherish the same ideals as them and come to help you. Whether you are in the spiritual realm or even hell, these volunteers will come to help you. It is because you have observed the bodhisattva precepts, which make you special. You are under a more stringent protection, and so you can be rescued even after falling into miserable places. Therefore, observing the bodhisattva precepts is one of the most important foundations for restoring our bodhicitta. If you do not observe the bodhisattva precepts, it means that you will have no bodhisattva precepts to remind you, no handrails, and no pathway to follow. As a matter of fact, you will never be successful in your Dharma practice. So, we must observe the bodhisattva precepts. And all your actions should benefit both yourselves and others. Your behavior should be in balance. It is not to benefit yourselves only, nor to sacrifice yourselves to benefit others. It is to adopt an equal behavior that benefits both oneself and others. This is called the true bodhicitta of action. But I can tell you that to practice from step 1 to step 4 and to accumulate this kind of merit in order to have an effect on your nature of mind, in the hope to restore 100% of your perfect enlightenment, it is extremely difficult. You will require 2 to 3 great asimhaya kalpas and there is no guarantee you will be successful. Why? Because you lack some of the most important core elements. What is the most important core element? It is the 5th step of the absolute bodhicitta, which is the most precious and thorough truth. It is the highest practice method of bodhicitta that incorporates the precepts, meditational power, and wisdom as the balanced middle way. In other words, you will need to keep a balance without any deviations so as to enter the state of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Only in this way can you arouse the intrinsic awareness of perfect enlightenment, that is 100% without any deviation, so that you can attain Buddhahood. What are the Buddhist scriptures that cover the 5th point? Needless to say, they are the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and the Great Perfection of Esoteric Buddhism, which has added many teachings of actual practices. You must have this core element of absolute bodhicitta to attain Buddhahood. If you know how to practice and master it, attaining Buddhahood can be very fast. At most, it may take half an asamhaya kalpa. If you know how to practice, and there is someone to guide you along the way, and you are aided by the foundation of step 1 to step 4, that is, if you practice from step 1 to step 5 altogether, you are likely to attain Buddhahood within this very lifetime. That is, you can attain Buddhahood when you die in the present life, or even before death. Unless, of course, you know the Great Perfection, and its key skills and techniques of the actual practices. That is, your Dharma practice program is very important, depending on which program you follow. Regardless of exoteric Buddhism or Sutrayana, or esoteric Buddhism or secret Mantrayana, most Dharma practitioners focus on the 1st to the 4th steps. There is no 5th step in the programs of their Dharma practices. In other words, no matter how you practice, you will never be able to restore your perfect enlightenment and attain Buddhahood when you die. But can you go to the Buddha's Pure Lands? It depends on how many elements you have and how qualified you are in your practice of steps 1 to 4. It also depends on whether your karmic creditors are in a hurry to catch you. Is there any karmic creditor who has hunted you down for dozens of past lives and finally has a chance to catch you in your present life? Will they let you go? Would they say that you have already completed steps 1 to 4 and have done well in your Dharma practice? Wow, then you can easily run away and do not have to pay off debts. They will definitely catch you right away. They will not give up this opportunity. That is to say, there are many causes and conditions contained in it, which are beyond your expectations. As a result, you may be frustrated and fail your Dharma practice. Therefore, what kind of Dharma practice program covers steps 1 to 5, thereby increasing your opportunity to reach the Buddha's Pure Lands and to attain Buddhahood? This is a win-win solution. But how do you practice it? In fact, we have been talking about this. If we wish to enter such a state of Dharma practice and master it, we must know, in fact, what periods in the process of constant reincarnation of life have we experienced. What periods do we have to go through? Actually, there are 3 different transitional periods you have to experience after you die. Why must I talk about these? Because these are the most important periods. Everyone will die when you die, but you have to face these 3 important transitional periods, which we call bardo, or intermediate states, that is, a state of existence or possession during the transitional period. We have already covered this in the first 5 sessions of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series. It is like prescribing the right medicine for the right disease. How important is it to us? Some people, especially many Dharma practitioners in exoteric Buddhism or Sutrayana, fail to understand and criticize. Why talk about things after death if you cannot even succeed in your Dharma practice while you are alive? You cannot see those things. This is not the case. Everything we do is to learn in a comprehensive and balanced way, so as to get into the core easily and help ourselves. This is prescribing the right medicine for the right disease. If you fail to prescribe the right medicine for the right disease and fail to understand how complicated things can be after death, you will fail no matter how good your Dharma practice is before death. Why? Because of panic, misjudgment. Fail in some unprepared state. Okay, when we are alive, we will have to use the application of the Diamond Sutra, as we are now going to talk about how to practice it. That is to say, how do we practice during the period from our birth to death, the bardo of this life, in complementary with some of the Dharma practices after our death, so as to assist ourselves in a comprehensive way? How do we have a program that contains the complete visualization methods in practicing all the way from the 1st to the 5th steps? We have already said this one. That is, we divide the 24 hours of the day into 3 periods to carry out our visualization practice. For example, the moment we just wake up from sleep, or when we are just emerging from meditation, or during a session of meditative concentration. Here we say 24 hours, but do not say the time of death. In fact, you also have to practice this program when you die. When we enter the Dharma realm, we have to initiate a program called the programming in entering into the Dharma realm. When suddenly changing from one state to another very different state, in fact, our Dharma nature will appear, and suddenly there will be an opportunity to restore to its original 100%. Although it is very short-lived and may only last for 1/20th second or shorter. You can start off this program right away if you train regularly in your lifetime and are very familiar with it. You do not need even 1 second to initiate the program immediately. If you can be so fast, you can make use of any moment when your Dharma nature is restored in a split second of the gap. And you can definitely cooperate to initiate the programming in entering into the Dharma realm. When the two can work together in the fastest manner and the shortest time possible, you can formally enter the Dharma realm, and stay there for a long time. Where you can even stay to attain Buddhahood. Actually, I have taught you how to grasp this opportunity in the first 5 sessions. But how do you practice when you are alive? How to practice and be familiarized to such an extent that it takes less than 1/20th of a second for you to initiate this program? This is of great importance. We have been explaining this since the 6th session until now. You should pay attention to the 3 realms. It means that we are not yet dead now and we have not yet entered the Dharma realm. What kind of actual practices should we undertake when we are still being trained in the 3 realms, in order to restore our bodhicitta? What is the program like? What I have just mentioned is to initiate the programming in entering into the Dharma realm. How do we stay there after entering? Is there any actual practice method to consolidate this? It is the method we have to practice while we are alive. And this is, in fact, the program for actual practice to restore bodhicitta, which is an important teaching. That is to say, our intrinsic nature, also called Buddha nature, or Dharma nature, is equivalent to the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. Such intrinsic awareness is called bodhicitta. You will find that it has a lot of names. This is because the Buddhist sutras are translated by many translators. As a result, there are many different versions. That is why there are so many different explanations, as you can see. In addition, the name you use reflects the different levels of your Dharma practice. You will use a different term after you have attained or realized a different level. So, why are there so many different names? In fact, they may all refer to the same thing. As long as you can restore it, it can at least help you to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence or even attain Buddhahood. There are a number of oral pith instructions explained in the Heart Sutra, which we will use to explain how to initiate the programming in entering into the Dharma realm. How to combine Dharma practice with the highest fifth step in daily life instead of just practicing steps from the first to the fourth. After countless cycles of karmic existence for kalpas, we may not know that we have yet to practice the most critical and core fifth step. In this way, we may fall into hell and do not know when we will get out of it. How can we still practice the Dharma? It is impossible, right? It means that one should not omit the most important fifth step. Is there a Buddhist sutra that teaches us the most important fifth step in daily life? It is the Diamond Sutra, and of course the Great Perfection. Let us first talk about the Diamond Sutra, since it is so important. But it is too esoteric. Everyone says that they fail to understand it after listening to other people's explanations. You even ask me to understand it and then combine with daily life to practice. This is indeed something with great difficulty. But this is exactly what we are going to talk about now. Well, the origin of the Diamond Sutra is that Elder Subhuti asked the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni if there is a sentient being, whether the sentient being is a virtuous man or a virtuous woman. I know that there are many Dharma practitioners who look down on women. I would like to tell them this: if they look down on women, it means that they do not understand the Buddhist holy Dharma, nor do they know how to explain the sutras. The Diamond Sutra is one of the highest Dharma teachings. Let me tell you, whether you are a woman or a man, you can make a wish called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, that is the unsurpassed, well-balanced and equally abiding, complete and perfect enlightenment. It is a mind that wants to attain Buddhahood. Everyone, whether you are a man or a woman, can make a wish to attain Buddhahood. All you have to do is make such a wish. It is not necessary for a woman to become a man, or to change sex, or to take rebirth as a man after death to practice the Dharma. It should not be interpreted as such. Because I have seen a lot of Dharma masters who often say to others, women cannot attain Buddhahood. Women have to die first and then become men. I said, none of the Buddhist sutra states that women cannot attain Buddhahood. They said, you are mistaken. It is not that a woman cannot attain Buddhahood. A woman can only attain Buddhahood after she dies and takes rebirth as a man. What a ridiculous theory they have. They said, if you do not believe it, have a look at this particular Buddhist sutra. There was a woman who had practiced the Dharma for a long time but could not attain Buddhahood. She had to ascend to the top of a tree and then descend from that tree to become a man. And then she could finally attain Buddhahood. So, they must change first. This is actually very ridiculous. Diamond Sutra directly points out that it does not matter whether the person is a man or a woman, as long as he or she make a wish to attain what we call absolute bodhicitta. You make a wish to restore the most precious bodhicitta, that is, to attain Buddhahood. It is to restore your realizing and knowing of 100% perfect enlightenment. At this time, where should our minds abide? If you have already attained Buddhahood, why would you care where your minds abide? But you are now making a wish to attain Buddhahood, and you often have deluded thoughts. Where should our minds stay, and what should we do in our daily Dharma practice? What are the most important keys to the success of our Dharma practices? So, he asked, how should their minds be abided by? Where should your minds abide? How should their thoughts be subdued? How do I remove my deluded thoughts? Well, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni provided two oral pith instructions. One is, should not abide anywhere, and the other is, do not abide in notions. Should not abide anywhere means that you should not abide in any forms and appearances, or any points, or any minds and thoughts, or any views. You must not be so attached to all these things that you would rather die than let go. You should not have such attachments. Do not abide in notions means not to cling on to it or stay there. Many people will feel that this is really hard for their Dharma practice. This means that my mind should not think at all. Do you mean that my mind should not think about anything? Then I would be like getting lost in the mist, not knowing my direction and where to stay, because you said don't stay anywhere. Wouldn't I be just floating around? Wouldn't my mind be floating around? You do not allow me to abide in or cling to any thoughts and thinking or views. Wouldn't I become a person with no insight? I will be like an idiot. Some people have misunderstood these two oral pith instructions. Actually, they are not what you think. Should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions do not mean that you have lost your own realizing and knowing. So, I have added a comment below that you must realize and know that all deluded thoughts are merely transitory manifestations of the Dharma nature. And they themselves have no eternal forms and appearances. Because it is constantly changing and it is impermanent, so it is not eternal. Neither is it a physical form or appearance that will stay there forever. Then why should you cling to it and insist on dissecting or analyzing it, given that its appearance will change another day? After being dissected and analyzed, its form and appearance will change again. There is no way you can analyze and understand it. So, in fact, you should realize and know that all deluded thoughts are only temporary projections. They are a kind of projected manifestations of your own Dharma nature. You must have this kind of realizing and knowing, which means that only if you have not lost your realizing and knowing, can you succeed in your Dharma practice. So, the meaning of should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions is that you have to maintain the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. Such realizing and knowing will not deviate, will not stay at a certain point, will not be trapped in a certain thought and thinking or view, and will not be limited. As soon as it sees a deluded thought, it will know that this is something with no physical form and appearance. Oh, it turns out that it is a kind of transitory and constantly changing manifestation. As long as you do not stay there, you will not be bound to it. This kind of visualization practice is an oral pith instruction for the visualization practice of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. The meaning of neither existence is that there are no such deluded thoughts to forms and appearances, and constant views. Nor voidness means that it is not empty. It has a kind of realizing and knowing in it, the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment, which will never be restricted by anything and has no deviation. As such, it is nor voidness. Having the realizing and knowing is nor voidness. Having no so-called forms and appearances, thoughts and thinking, or views is called neither existence. So, this is a Dharma practice method that needs to maintain the realizing and knowing. If you do not know how to practice, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions, you will need to read this second supplementary explanation to understand. Okay, where did we leave off in the previous session? We talked about this sentence from the Diamond Sutra. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said to Subhuti, all bodhisattvas should abide their minds in this way as I taught. This means that all bodhisattvas should only practice the Dharma in the same way as I am teaching you now. Where should their minds abide? They should abide in the state of do not abide in notions. You should abide in the state of do not abide in notions, a state where there is no single point that you can cling to or be tied down to. Whether it is for the sake of infinite merits, or for being liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, or for attaining Buddhahood, your Dharma practice should be like this. Okay, why is it called infinite merits? Actually, we have already explained why you should practice in this way in the 8th session, and why if you practice with these two oral pith instructions, your merits will become infinite. And you can even be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, or to attain Buddhahood. I have already explained it by then. You can re-watch the video on the oral pith instructions of the visualization practice on the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness of the great perfection, in the daily life. Okay, we will continue to explain the next paragraph of the Diamond Sutra. Subhuti, the Lord Buddha addressed the elder, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by means of his bodily form? How do you interpret this sentence? Well, let me explain the term Tathagata first. How to explain Tathagata? It is stated in the Maharatnakuta Sutra, Volume 90, Tathagata is one who can realize and know everything as it truly is. This is called the Tathagata. What does it mean? As it truly is means that whether it is any form or appearance or thought that you actually see, or any deluded thought, or even your view, you can use or realizing and knowing to see its true existence, that is, you see it just as it truly is, nothing more and nothing less. You can know and understand its essential nature as it truly is. If you have this ability, that is, you have this kind of realizing and knowing ability, you can be called the Tathagata. That is Buddha. Only Buddha has such an ability. Only when you restore the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment can you see the real side of everything as it truly is. What is the real side? What is its real, essential nature? This will be explained shortly. If you can do this, you can be called the Tathagata. What is called Tathagata? This is how it is explained in the chapter 29 of the Diamond Sutra, the quiescence of his awesome demeanor. The Tathagata has neither whence to come nor whither to go. Therefore, he is called the Tathagata. What does this mean exactly? It is the same as neither coming nor going. Do you remember that I have explained the Dharma nature, which has many characteristics called 8 negations? It is neither creation nor destruction, nothing gives birth to it, and nothing can destroy it. Neither eternalism nor nihilism. Eternalism means something eternal. But it really has nothing, because of impermanence. There is only impermanence in the 3 realms. There is no such thing as eternal, that is, neither existence. Because eternalism means existence. How to explain nor nihilism? Nihilism means nothing, that is, voidness. As such, neither eternalism nor nihilism is the same as neither existence nor voidness. This refers to our Dharma nature, our Buddha nature, or our realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment. There is nothing that gives birth to it. It exists naturally. It will never be destroyed, even if someone destroys your physical bodies, or threatens to strike the top of your head with the so-called 5 thunderbolts to annihilate your souls. This is nothing but a lie to deceive you. It will never happen. Your essential nature will never be destroyed. There is only one way to do so, and that is when someone lies to you that you will be destroyed. If you dare to leave my sect, I will strike the top of your head with the 5 thunderbolts and destroy you. You will be reduced to ashes and then vanish without a trace. If you believe those words, then you will use your own abilities and your own mental strength to lie to yourselves. I am gone. I have been destroyed. I have nothing now. I have been reduced to ashes and vanished without a trace. I have been smashed into fine motes of dust. Then you will really turn yourselves into fine motes of dust. But in fact, your realizing and knowing can still be reaggregated and can be restored to 100% perfect enlightenment. It will never be destroyed. However, there is an illusion. Because you are deceived and threatened by some bad members from other religious sects, so you deceive yourselves to become a false disillusionment. So, do not be deceived by others. The Buddhist Holy Dharma is very clear. All of our sentient beings have a Buddha nature, of perfect enlightenment. It is only hidden for the time being, which prevents us from restoring this kind of realizing and knowing. So, we have lost this ability. And it is even worse if we are deceived by others. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said, I am telling you very frankly now. Do not be deceived by those lies of others. You are neither creation nor destruction. You will never be destroyed. Why not focus your attention on the Dharma practice to restore your perfect enlightenment? Then you can save yourselves. Do not be deceived by others again. Do not be controlled by others again. Everyone, neither eternalism nor nihilism, it is neither existence nor voidness. It is one kind of realizing and knowing. You should not always be attached to some realities and believe that they do exist. Then you will always be trapped by the deception of reality and never be able to get out of it. So, you must remember this, there should be a kind of realizing and knowing. You should not imagine that all should be empty in your visualization practice. If you do, you will be trapped in the formless realm. So, we must remember not to misunderstand this and practice incorrectly. What about neither identicalness nor differentiation? It means that the ability of your realizing and knowing is very powerful. It can project endless views, deluded thoughts, and forms and appearances. All can be projected. You will see more than one single form and appearance, but they are not all different. Because actually, the essential nature itself, which is your Dharma nature, has no form and appearance. However, it will not only project one form and appearance but many instead. That is the same as all the forms and appearances we see in this world. But in fact, the essential nature is all empty. They will be disillusioned at any time. They are not eternal, but just a false illusion being projected as the result of dependent origination. One day, you will find in a different space and time that everything no longer exists. Only their essential nature exists. In fact, they are all projections created by this essential nature. Nor differentiation means that it is this essential nature, again, that creates projection. That is, there is nothing different. It is still this essential nature. It is still this Dharma nature. The Dharma nature has not changed, but it has more than one aspect that you can see. Neither coming nor going means that it is all-pervasiveness. Because of all-pervasiveness, you do not have to go from one point to another. So, it does not come from anywhere, that is, neither coming. Also, it does not go anywhere or go out from anywhere. So, it is called nor going, or nor going out. That is, neither coming nor going. The meaning of Tathagata is, he has neither whence to come. His essential nature is all-pervasiveness. He does not come here from any point or from somewhere. He is oneness. He will not go from this place to that place. No, he is all-pervasiveness. He is oneness. In other words, if you have the characteristic of neither coming nor going, and you know that you are all-pervasiveness, and you can visualize yourselves as all-pervasiveness, meaning you do not have a limitation that requires you to go from one point to another. If you have this kind of ability, you are called Tathagata, that is, you are ubiquitous and existing everywhere. Who can possess this great ability? This is what only Buddha has. So, this is the reason that Tathagata is one of the 10 holy names of Buddha. In other words, Tathagata is Buddha. The Buddha is the same as the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. Therefore, it is incorrect for you to call the Buddha as Tathagata Buddha. This is wrong. Tathagata is Buddha. Buddha is Tathagata. Saying Tathagata Buddha is equivalent to repeating the same name twice. It is the same as you address Mr. Chen as Mr. Chen, Mr. Chen, repeating the name twice. So, remember that Buddha is the same as Tathagata. Now, how do we explain the sentence, can the Tathagata be seen by means of his bodily form? Can you see the Buddha by means of his physical body? Many people do not understand when they hear this. If you explain it this way, of course they will not understand. But they said they had heard of some senior Dharma brothers or some great Dharma masters claiming to have seen the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni appear right before them. Some claim to have seen Buddha Amitabha appear to them, while others claim that they have seen Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara appear to them. This means they can see the Buddhas. They claimed to have seen them with their very own bodies and eyes. They were not dreaming. They really saw them. Why did the Lord Buddha ask the elder whether he could see the Buddha by means of his physical body? Why was this question phrased in this way? This means there is no need to ask. The answer is no. So if you translate or explain like this, many sentient beings will not understand. You should phrase the question in this way: can you see the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment by means of a physical body? In this way, it will be much easier for sentient beings to understand. The realizing and knowing has no shapes or forms. How can you see the realizing and knowing with your eyes? Realizing and knowing is realizing and knowing. If you really explain or translate this passage like this, there is no need for many sentient beings to practice the Dharma for hundreds or even thousands of years but still do not understand how the Diamond Sutra should be interpreted. After understanding it, you still need to know how to apply it in your daily life, which is really very difficult. But if you explain it like this, they will understand. Oh, you are right. How can we use a physical body, that is, with the naked eye, to see the realizing and knowing? They can understand immediately. No, world-honored one. Then the elder Subhuti replied. No, means, it is impossible to see. The Tathagata cannot be seen by means of his bodily form. This is how Subhuti replied. You cannot be attached to using a physical body, you can omit the phrase, be attached to, in short, you cannot use a physical body to see the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. However, many people have explained before that you cannot be attached to using the physical body to see those Buddhas. Tathagata means Buddha. It is not possible to see Buddha. If you explain like this, those sentient beings will get lost right away and will never understand it. Therefore, to explain it formally, and if you would like the sentient beings to understand it easily, you must first understand what Tathagata is and the true connotative meaning of Tathagata. If you explain it after you understand it, it means perfect enlightenment. Can you see the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment with your eyes? No, you cannot. Then they will understand it. Because the eyes are made of flesh, that is, our eyes are still material, and they are part of the flesh. When you use a pair of eyes to join your mental consciousness to connect with your outside world, you are able to see some images. It turns out that your mental consciousness will combine with your body, and then connect with the outside world to form a projection that reflects each other. Only then subsequently you can see the real images. That is, if you see a Buddha, do not forget that Buddha is the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. In this sutra, it does not mean that you see a certain image or shape and form. These are all limitations. Take note of this when you see Buddha statues or images. As a matter of fact, you are attached to the idea that they are extraordinary. You often think that Buddha Amitabha should look like this, and Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara should look like this. In fact, you already have a limitation, thinking that the image of Buddha should look like this. If you see these images and think how extraordinary these images are, in fact, you have already added something. You have added your mental consciousness to the naked eye. It is because your mental consciousness firmly believes that Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara looks like this. Then you also connect with the coincidence of some causes and conditions dependent origination from the outside world to form mutual projections. As a result, an image appears. Then what will happen to you? You will easily abide in notions. You will abide in that particular notion and be restricted by it. What is abiding in notions? When you abide in a certain form and appearance, you will be limited by that form and appearance. Then, you have no way to realize or comprehend what infinity is. Do you know that the Dharma realm is infinite? It is all pervasiveness. It is a realm where only the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment can stay. Now you have limited it by abiding in notions. You firmly believe that Buddha looks like this and that Buddha is only an image but not realizing and knowing. As such, you will never be able to restore your realizing and knowing. You will be limited by one form and appearance, such as eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Wow, the white Dharma robe worn by Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara is so beautiful. You will be limited by an image, without having the realizing and knowing of intrinsic awareness, which you will never be able to restore. That is, you have no way to enter the Dharma realm, which is in the state of oneness, which means that you cannot attain Buddhahood. So, when you see a Buddha in your dreams or with your own eyes, do not be too happy. Because you are still practicing the first to fourth steps, which are the steps of the Dharma practice of abiding in notions. You have yet to practice the fifth step, which is do not abide in notions as mentioned in the Diamond Sutra. You have yet to practice the absolute bodhicitta. You have yet to understand it and are still restricted by these forms and appearances. So, how should we practice? It is stated here, should not abide anywhere, do not abide in notions. You must know that Buddha is a kind of realizing and knowing. Be it Buddha Amitabha, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, or Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, they are a kind of realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment, without a form and appearance. It is just that some of you find it very hard to connect with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They do not know how to practice the Dharma or turn their minds to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas they cannot see. Of course, there must be an image for them to see in order to turn their minds to Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. Oh, I see. This is what the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara looks like. I must see her image so that I have the motivation to practice Dharma. Otherwise, how can I carry on with my Dharma practice? If so, you are still practicing the first to fourth steps, and you will never be able to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. How many cycles of karmic existence you have to go through? Then you will require 3 great Asimhaya Kalpas, or at least 2.5 Asimhaya Kalpas, to get to the 5th step. This means that you will never succeed in your Dharma practice. So, what should we do? We should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. Do not be limited by the image of the Buddha. Because our mental consciousness is attached to the idea that a Buddha should look similar to our human beings, with eyes, ears, mouth, nose, a pair of hands and feet. They wear beautiful clothes with many ornaments, so this is the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. This is actually a kind of attachment of our own. Attachment means limitation. You will never be successful in your Dharma practice if you abide in notions to such an extent. The next sentence, why? Subhuti continued, why do I say that the Tathagata cannot be seen by means of his bodily form? Because when the Tathagata speaks of the bodily form, it is not the real bodily form. This sentence makes many people feel completely lost. The bodily form that the Tathagata refers to is not actually the bodily form. Since it is not the bodily form, then stop using this term. When you say that the bodily form you are referring to is not the bodily form, it is like saying, the orange that the Tathagata refers to is not an orange. I really cannot understand what this means. How should this sentence be interpreted exactly? I have already said that the Tathagata is one who can realize and know everything as it truly is. That is, one who can realize and know the true existence as it truly is. You have already used your perfect enlightenment to realize and know clearly and truthfully what a true existence of its essential nature is. This is called Tathagata. Only those with this kind of ability can be called as the Tathagata. Well, speaks of, if these 2 words were not translated in this way, it might be easier to be understood. In terms of translation, I have said this many times. If you do not have experiences in actual practices and you have yet to realize the Dharma to a certain level, or if you do not have such a realization ability, and then you go to do translation work, you will only translate according to the literal meaning. If you continue to translate in this way, you will translate it as it speaks of, because it literally means it talks about, right? That is why many people have explained the Diamond Sutra for so many years, but they still could not explain, properly and accurately, its core conditions up to the very point. The reason is that they only do literal translation, direct translation, and direct interpretation. They just explain it literally, rather than through their own experience in Dharma practice or their realizations. Because they do not understand it. So they explained it literally and translated it into, speaks of. For them, speaks of means talks about. The orange that the Tathagata, or the Buddha, talks about is not an orange. The bodily form that the Buddha talks about is not the bodily form. As a result, people do not understand at all. Okay, if you translate it correctly, you will understand it. If you interpret this sentence with your real experience in actual practices, you will understand it. What he realizes and knows, simply speaking, it is not what he speaks of. It is Buddha, or Tathagata, who can realize and know the true existence as it truly is. And if you have such an ability, to form an appearance that you realize and know, you will find that it actually manifests as a result of dependent origination. It changes at any time, and it does not have an eternal form and appearance. It is non-bodily form. Non means no. It has no bodily form. Let us explain the term non-bodily form more clearly. The bodily form that he manifests now is not his real situation. It is not entirely right if you say that he has no bodily form, because you can really see his bodily form now, but in fact, it is called non-bodily form. Therefore, the translation of non-bodily form is better than that of no bodily form, the latter of which, as you will find, is not used in any Buddhist sutras. You know, those great translators are up to a certain level. Some may not have 100 points but still have at least 60 points. So, they will translate it as non-bodily form, but not no bodily form. What would happen if it was translated as no bodily form? That would be a mistake, a wrong translation. But here it is written like this, or no bodily form. It appears that some people have explained to others in this way. So, I would like to make it clear here. Non-bodily form is not equal to no bodily form. No bodily form means that there is nothing at all, even the form and appearance itself. Even the appearance of orange is gone. But with non-bodily form, it means the orange has its appearance, a bodily form. But if you use or realizing and knowing to realize and know its real to form and appearance and essential nature as truly it is, you will find that the orange will be disillusioned soon or later. It will go rotten and moldy and then decompose. When the orange no longer looks like an orange, it is called the non-bodily form. The fact is that it does not have a real and unchanging bodily form. Therefore, it can be given a name called non-bodily form. So, remember that non-bodily form is not equal to no bodily form. Then, let us now take a look at the bodily form of perfect enlightenment. Perfect enlightenment is a kind of realizing and knowing without the bodily form. It has no shapes and forms. Here we can say no bodily form. It is non-bodily form because the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment has no bodily form. On the other hand, if you want to explain the bodily form, namely any shape and form that the Tathagata speaks of, you must talk about non-bodily form. It has to be a non-bodily form, because he is referring to its essential nature. You cannot use no to explain it. But if you are referring to the bodily form of perfect enlightenment, you can say it has no bodily form. Then you can use the word no. So, depending on the different situations and the core issues of the sentences in a Buddhist sutra, the explanations will be different. The words used will also be different. As such, you must not get confused. If you do, you will never be able to interpret this sutra. Your lack of understanding of this sutra will cause you to fail in your Dharma practice. If you can understand it, you will be able to apply it in your actual practices, which can then be linked with daily life. So, how should we explain it? If I change the way this sentence is translated, it will help you understand it more easily. The bodily form that a Tathagata knows and understands is non-bodily form. The bodily form that he knows and understands is not what it looks like now. The essential nature of everything a Buddha realize and know is a kind of bodily form which is unreal and not eternal. You may be able to understand such a translation more easily. You will not understand it if it has been translated as speaks of. That is, the bodily form the Buddha speaks of is in fact not a bodily form. You will find this sentence very contradictory. But if you say that the bodily form the Buddha or Tathagata knows and understands is in fact non-bodily form, and has no physical entity, then you will understand immediately. Whether you are translating or explaining this sutra, if you have not reached this level, you will not understand what it says. You'll explain it incorrectly, or just explain it literally. It means the bodily form that the Buddha talks about is non-bodily form. You go home and ponder it slowly. Then you will understand it. Actually, he did not understand it himself, so he could not explain it to others clearly. After much thinking for a period of time, the person came back to ask the Dharma master, what does it mean by the bodily form one speaks of as non-bodily form? I still do not understand it. You go back and think about it again. The Dharma master still could not explain it to you. How could he explain? The truth is that he did not understand its true meaning himself. It is because he has not practiced up to that level of realization. He could only repeat the same explanation to you literally. So, you have to remember, if you translate this sentence differently, it will be easier for you to understand. After that, the Lord Buddha continued to speak to Subhuti. He said, all forms are nothing but illusions. When you see various forms and consider them to be non-forms, you are seeing the Tathagatas. How to explain this sentence? It refers to all forms and appearances, not only the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment, or Buddha, who has no bodily form, that is, he is non-bodily form. Or it can even be said that he has no bodily form. As for all other forms and appearances, that is, we are not talking about Buddha, or the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. We are talking about all other forms and appearances. In fact, they are all fake. They are merely a manifestation of some deluded thoughts. Simply speaking, they are some forms and appearances projected by the combination of the naked eye, plus your mental consciousness, connecting with the dependent origination of the outside world. They will change at any time. Even if you touch the orange, which appears to be very real, the projection of the orange comes from an object that reflects some light into your eyes. After adding the judgment of your mental consciousness, you can see clearly that it is really an orange. Even if you can touch it and see it, that is, even if your body can touch it or see it, or feel it, these forms and appearances are the manifestation of illusions and deluded thoughts. They are fake even though you may feel that they truly exist. Yes, because they will be disillusioned sooner or later. Your orange will definitely change and look different, either being eaten and digested by you or getting rotten and decomposed. You will not be able to recognize it after all these changes occur. That is, it will not be eternal and unchanging, and it will no longer be what you see now. It is a projected image of the false deluded thought, temporarily existing through the dependent origination. What you see in this second is not even the same as the next second. It is just that you do not know it. It turns out that some of the orange's tiny atoms, molecules, and even ions are already in the process of disintegration every single second, but you cannot see it. That is, the form and appearance you see now is actually changing every single second. So, it is not real. If you see the manifestation of any form and appearance, and you can use your realizing and knowing to understand that these forms and appearances are not eternal and unchanging, it means that you can realize and know the true existence as it truly is, then you have seen the Tathagatas. This sentence was once translated by some as, if you think all the forms and appearances you see are fake, seeing all forms as non-forms, that is, any form and appearance that you see now is not its original form and appearance, it means that you have seen Buddha. Those people are completely lost again. Can I see Buddha this way? What is Buddha like then? If I see an orange and think it is not an orange, does that mean I see Buddha? This is what they fail to understand. But if you see all these true existence, and you know that they are not forms and appearances which are eternal and unchanging, then you have realized the current state of how nature changes as it truly is. It means that you have realized and known the true existence as it truly is. Its actual state is that it is changing every second. It is not at all the form and appearance you see now. Or if your lighting is darker and the orange reflects less light, the look of the orange will change immediately. It will look grey and become a grey-orange. This means that all the forms and appearances you see are not eternal and unchanging forms and appearances. They are in fact some reflections or projections which will disintegrate and change at any time. It is just that you only notice the disintegration on a larger or more profound scale and not the subtler ones. That is how it should be explained. If you can realize and know this kind of state as it truly is, then it is the same as you see Tathagata. What do you see? You already realize and know the real state of that thing as it truly is. That is, you have the characteristic of Buddha and the energy of Buddha. If you see everything in the future, no matter what you see in your daily life, you can use this to explain it immediately rather than being afraid, angry, or unhappy when someone swears at you and then points a knife at you. But if your first response is seeing all forms as non-forms, you can see the true existence. Oh, this is a state that is unreal and can change at any time. I don't need to be so frightened. I have to maintain my meditational power. And then how should I use my meditational power to change the current state? This person is yelling at me with foul language now. What is he yelling about? Should I be angry at him and trigger my own greed, hatred, and ignorance? Or should I see the true existence clearly that this person has aroused a great deal of greed, hatred, and ignorance? He is suffering from an illness. To put it simply, there is a patient suffering from an illness now. So, do you need to be so angry? Although it is you at whom the patient is yelling, do you wish to suffer the same kind of illness as him? If you trigger the same anger as him, then you are just as ill as him. Or would you rather choose to use your meditational power to realize and know that all these are only temporary projections? Why should you be so attached to them? If you can realize and know their true existence, as it truly is, that is, they are changing all the time, why should you abide in the notions of those things that they yelled at you? It is better if you aim to understand whether the state of your mind nature can abide in your meditational power to deal with these matters. If you combine this with your Dharma practice, that is, if you apply the statement I teach you now to your Dharma practice in daily life, you will make a great progress. Therefore, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni asked, how can you restore your realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment? And how can you attain Buddhahood? The answer is that if you are able to do this, all forms are illusions. If you see those forms and consider them to be non-forms, you are seeing the Tathagatas. All forms are indeed illusory. When you see any to form an appearance, and know that it is not of true existence at that time, and that its actual situation is not like this, this means that you have seen the true existence. You are Tathagata, given that you already have the characteristic and ability of Buddha. This sentence is explained and applied in this way. So, if someone asks you, how is it going with your Dharma practice? You have been practicing the Dharma for decades. Have you succeeded in your Dharma practice yet? You can answer the question with this statement: if you see all forms as non-forms, you have indeed seen the Tathagatas. You can say like this: you ask me whether I have succeeded in my Dharma practice. I can answer you now. All the forms and appearances I see are in fact not their original forms and appearances. They are the result of dependent origination. Their true, essential nature is illusory. It is same as empty space with no form and appearance. That is, I have seen the Tathagatas. I have realized and known, as it truly is, about how to apply the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. This means I have already succeeded. Do you understand? That is, if you ask any guru, Dharma master, or Dharma practitioner who has practiced the Dharma for decades, and they can answer your question with this statement, it means that they have attained some realizations such that they are able to comprehend the content of those Buddhist sutras. They have indeed known and understood the real, essential nature of all forms and appearances. That is, they have begun to grasp the Dharma practice of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. They may have even achieved a certain level to be able to answer you with this sentence. But you ought to be careful. These video lectures I teach will be uploaded to YouTube. There are many people who really want to use the Buddhist holy Dharma to deceive others despite the fact that they do not understand it themselves and have no realization at all. But they intend to deceive some people. If you meet them one day and ask them whether they have succeeded in their Dharma practices, they may use this sentence to answer you. As a result, this sentence of mine may become meaningless. That is, after I finish this lecture, and if you hear them say this sentence one day, do not consider them to have succeeded in their Dharma practices. You may need to observe them in depth, or to follow them for a while and listen to the details of their teachings in order to determine what level they have attained. No one knows how to provide an explanation for this sentence like I do if they have not reached that level. When you ask, have you succeeded in your Dharma practice, most of them do not know to answer your question with this sentence. But if they do, it means that they have already practiced and realized the fifth step of the bodhicitta. They already have a deeper understanding of the Diamond Sutra and know how to interpret it. But after I have put this video lecture on YouTube, I fear that there will be some people copying my explanation of this sentence to deceive you. So, you need to go deeper. Okay, we have previously mentioned the 18 realms, or the 18 chains, in the Diamond Sutra. I have already explained them, so I will not repeat them here. The reason why we cannot see all forms as non-forms, that is, failing to see their true, essential nature, and to know that they are illusory, is because the 18 chains have locked us tightly. How do we explain these 18 chains? You can re-watch the 7th session, Oral Pith Instructions of the Visualization Practice on the Nature of the Five Aggregates as Emptiness in the Heart Sutra. Okay, we have also said before that the Diamond Sutra teaches the method for actual practices in daily life, focusing in particular on the fifth step, the bodhicitta. If you really like to practice the first to fourth steps but do not practice the fifth, you may not necessarily attain Buddhahood even after having spent at least 3 great Asamkhya-kalpas. Because it requires at least 2.5 Asamkhya-kalpas just to practice the first to fourth steps. And this does not include the time it takes to get out of the hell if you accidentally fall into it. That is, you will have no chance to get to the 5th step. However, if you can really practice the 5th step, you will need no more than half a Asamkhya-kalpa to attain Buddhahood. Or there is a possibility that you can even attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. Therefore, this is the fastest and most important core element of the Buddhist holy Dharma. If you do not practice this core element, the bodhicitta, I think it is a great loss for you. We practice according to the Diamond Sutra when we are alive. Its oral pith instructions should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. What do these mean? These mean we do not abide in the notions of the 6 dusts and the 4 notions. This is how we should practice. What are the 4 notions? You can re-watch the visualization practice of compassion and bodhicitta series 6 comparisons among the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices in the daily life by the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and the Great Perfection. The 4 notions were explained there. As long as you do not abide in and are not attached to the 4 notions, then you will have grasped some of the cause of this 5th step in the visualization practice of the bodhicitta. But when we die, what should we have already prepared before we can enter the Dharma realm? It has already been described in the Heart Sutra that we should visualize, illuminate and perceive the nature of the 5 aggregates as emptiness, all empty. Actually, the method involved is do not abide in notions. But is do not abide in notions sufficient by itself? Of course not. The 5 aggregates are the 5 vast databases that you have accumulated in your numerous past lives. Within them, there are all kinds of messy stuff. They are one of the most important obstacles that bind you, trap you, and prevent you from entering the Dharma realm, or not knowing how to stay. So, what exactly do you need to do to not abide in notions? Apart from removing the constraints of the 18 realms, you also need to empty and purify what you have accumulated in those databases. You need to replace them with the right stuff. What do you need to replace them with? I will talk about them in a while. In short, you have to remove the obstacles, the 5 aggregates. This is a very important step to be successful in your Dharma practice. How are the 5 aggregates hindering us? You can re-watch the visualization practice of compassion and bodhicitta series 7 oral pith instructions of the visualization practice on the nature of the 5 aggregates as emptiness in their Heart Sutra. If we combine the Diamond Sutra and Heart Sutra together in our Dharma practice, it means that we can achieve should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. In our daily life, we do not abide in the notions of 6 dusts, we are not trapped by the 18 chains, and we do not abide in the 4 notions. Then you have already been trained while you are alive. But that is still not enough, you have to follow the oral pith instructions taught in the Heart Sutra. That is, you have to replace all the stuff in your 5 databases, the 5 aggregates, all of them. You have to remove and clear all the obstacles inside. Join these 2 in your Dharma practice so that you can practice the 5th step to understand what the Great Perfection is and how to apply the oral pith instructions of actual practices of the Great Perfection. Only with this foundation can you be successful in your Dharma practice. Over the last few sessions, I have provided examples to demonstrate how the databases of Rupa Skandha aggregate of form and Vedana Skandha aggregate of sensations bother us. Now let us talk about another database using a case from the Dhammapada Vedana Sutra. We have already explained this sutra in the last session. It collects the Lord Buddha's revelations on different occasions. It contains a number of real cases. Here is a case when the Lord Buddha was propagating the Buddhist holy Dharma at the Jetavana Vihara in Sravasti. The Lord Buddha was teaching the methods for us to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. We have to work hard in our Dharma practice, we have to be diligent in our Dharma practice. In addition, we must eradicate the 5 aggregates: form, sensation, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. These are the obstacles in the 5 databases. This is the oral pith instruction of the Heart Sutra, as I said earlier. If, after death, you wish to be reborn in a better place, to enter the Dharma realm or go to the Buddha's Pure Lands, you must clear and empty all the obstacles in your 5 databases. If you're unable to clear all of them, try to remove most of them as much as possible. Otherwise, they will prevent you from achieving your objectives. Therefore, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni emphasized 2 key points at the time. The first is to diligently practice the Dharma, and the second is to change the contents of your 5 databases. You may ask, how to diligently practice the Dharma? What to practice? The first and the most fundamental thing for you to remember is that you should visualize the impermanence. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni told us, do not think that you are my disciples. So there must be no problems, you must remember to visualize the impermanence. Your lives will begin at any time. Without the body, you will not be able to practice the Dharma. You may fall into the cycle of karmic existence again. You do not know where you will be reborn and what will become of you by following the karmic force. So, he urged his disciples to visualize this impermanence clearly. Otherwise, they will not succeed no matter what Dharma methods they practice. He said, if you want to attain Buddhahood, then you must achieve, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. At that time, a bhikshu heard it and thought, is that so? Let me explain this first. You know, most of the bhikshus monks at that time practiced Hinayana, small vehicle, wishing only to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. They had no intention of attaining Buddhahood and listening to the Diamond Sutra. Of course, there were a few who were willing to listen to the Diamond Sutra. At that time, there was a bhikshu. His spiritual mind was very weak. He only became a monk because others told him to do it. They said it was good to be a monk, so he did it. After he became a monk, he heard others saying that it was good to practice the Dharma. So, he tried to practice the Dharma. But his spiritual mind was actually very weak. He went back to the room to sleep after eating every day. He was very lazy, very casual, and very relaxed. He did not visualize the impermanence, thinking it was delightful to be able to sleep. He was too lazy to think about what the future would bring. In this case, which database was he trapped by? Which aggregate was involved? A weak spiritual mind is a problem with the Samnaskanda aggregate of perceptions. It means that your aggregate of perceptions lacks something that can give you a firm will to practice the Dharma. Instead, there are some wills in it that make you not want to practice the Dharma. The aggregate of perceptions turned out to be that he was very fond of sleeping, which influenced his behavior. His behavior was to sleep instead of practicing the Dharma. In addition, he was too lazy to visualize the impermanence. Because of that, his aggregate of perceptions was unable to empty some of the obstacles. That is, his 5 aggregates remained the same databases he had accumulated over his numerous past lives. There were a lot of obstacles and black karmas in them. His many behavioral formula and programming were incorrect, and he never changed them. This means that the one thing that affected him most is the aggregate of perceptions. I am referring to the aggregate that affected him most. Of course, other aggregates have also affected him. It is just that, by now, I am focusing on this case of the bhikshu, in which the most important aggregate involved is the aggregate of perceptions. The Lord Buddha had pity for this bhikshu. He had so many disciples and could only pay attention to and care for a limited number of disciples. The best he could offer was to expound the Dharma, advise and encourage them. But why did he pay attention to this bhikshu? It turned out that he had an alarm bell which was ringing. It is possible that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni had a behavioral formula and programming, which was set by his own supernatural powers. In short, he would receive a notification whenever any disciple might die or any disciple died, so he knew he needed to help them. The Lord Buddha had set up this program. So, he was shocked to discover that this bhikshu had only 7 days to live, and then he would die. The Lord Buddha could also see the future consequences of this disciple. He saw that his disciple would fall into the 3 lower realms according to his karma. He thought that his disciple was really miserable. What did he do then? He went to knock the door while the disciple was asleep. While knocking the door, the Lord Buddha said, "Why are you still sleeping? You sleep like a bug. Why do you like to sleep in a hidden and unclean place, as if you were in a coma? Why did the Lord Buddha say this? You will know in a while. The Lord Buddha asked him, how can someone, despite being in the times of danger, injury, and illness, still use sleep to blind themselves to reality? Why do you choose not to cure your own illness? You should go to see a doctor. You have to think deeply. Stop being so lazy. However, this disciple did not react and went back to sleep. He thought that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni had been preaching for a long time. He had been saying the same thing since the disciple took refuge. It was no more than a platitude. He was already numb listening to it. As such, he continued to sleep and ignored it. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni continued to say, we Dharma practitioners ought to discipline ourselves, and we must act according to the rules. That is, we need to practice the Dharma. We need to go out to beg for alms. We need to change the data of our 5 databases and change our behavioral formula and programming. This is how the Lord Buddha explained to him, you have to practice the Dharma in this way to remove all the obstacles so that you will have no worries and obstructions in your mind. You must follow the disciplines and rules. Why don't you follow? You have to reflect on this all the time. If we can enter the Dharma realm, consider how good it means for us to be in the state of freedom and constant joy. You must always think of these. Moreover, you need to work hard to learn the right knowledge and right view. The Lord Buddha said, you should be the beacon of the world. As a disciple of the Buddha, you must become the beacon for the sentient beings. After that, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni also said to him, why don't you seize the time to practice the Dharma? You are supposed to be the beacon for others. But there remained no response from his disciple. The Lord Buddha continued to say, in fact, you only have 7 days left before your life ends. But you are still asleep. The Lord Buddha thus conveyed the most important message. Upon hearing this sentence, the bhikshu woke up immediately. Why did the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni say this at the time? This is what I want to say to my disciples. Why do we want you to have the right knowledge and right view? Not only do we want you to succeed in your Dharma practice, but we also want you, as the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said, to be the beacon of the world. The meaning of love beacon is that many people are in the dark, unaware of love Buddhist Dharma, and unknowing what is called right knowledge and right view. They are very miserable. They are often misled or deceived by some false Buddhist holy Dharma publicly preached. It is very sad. Those sentient beings are fooled and controlled. When you see these miserable sentient beings, you should be their beacon, giving them some light in the dark and teaching them what is right and what is wrong. So, they will not be deceived by others. That is how they can be saved. Why do you want to do this? The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni provided a detailed explanation. By doing so, you will get 1,000 times or more virtuous rewards. Suppose you can achieve the right knowledge and right view, using it to be the bright beacon to save people and help them. In that case, your virtuous reward will be increased by 1,000 times or more. Besides, there is another advantage that you will never fall into the evil realms. However, this bhikshu did not listen. If he listened, he would not be so lazy and go back to sleep. He ignored what the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said when he knocked on the door. So, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni finally had to say, you only have 7 days left to live. Then the bhikshu finally woke up immediately. Why? Because it concerned his immediate future, so he woke up. He woke up from his dreams immediately and said, "Oh, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, you are here." He immediately got up and made a humble bow respectfully. The Lord Buddha asked him, "Do you actually know what you had been in your past lives? Do you know how you lived your past lives?" "No," the bhikshu replied. Because he did not practice the Dharma, nor did he experience, that is, entering a meditation state to experience what happened in his past lives. He did not have this ability due to the lack of Dharma practice. So, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said to the bhikshu, "Who are you in your previous life? You used to be a monk in the time of the Viparayan Buddha. In fact, you were a monk before. You used to be a Dharma practitioner but in a different era." He said, "Because you were greedy to receive offerings. Your main purpose of becoming a monk was no need to work because believers would donate and offer you free meals, clothes, and accommodation. You also had respect from believers. It was all because you craved offerings. Secondly, you did not observe the precepts. Why would you become a monk? To be a monk is to save yourself. It is best if you can have the bright knowledge and right view, to be the beacon to others and save others. This should be the main purpose of being a monk. If you become a monk because you do not wish to work and people will make offerings to you, but you have violated a precept. Needless to say, if you violate this precept, you will also violate all other precepts. So, he did not observe the precepts. The bhikshu did not practice the Dharma. He often went to sleep after meals. It turns out that he had already developed this behavioral formula and programming when he was a monk previously. How? Because he did not need to work hard to beg for alms. Someone would have done that for him and brought the food directly to him. Why did he need to beg for alms? The result was that he made a habit of being lazy. Laziness is a characteristic. What animal has the characteristic of laziness? There are some bugs which are often associated with being lazy and very fond of sleeping. Subsequently, he was reborn as a bug who liked to sleep very much. How long had he been a bug for? 50,000 years. The lives of these kinds of bugs are very short. They keep reincarnating and dying. Throughout the 50,000 years, he had gone through countless deaths and rebirths. After that, his fates had improved somewhat. It was because he was once a monk after all. He took refuge and was protected by the blessings of Buddha's power. So, even in the poorest condition, there would always be some improvement. His improvement was he stopped being a bug after 50,000 years. Instead, he kept taking rebirth as a snail, the one with a hard shell. After that, he kept reborn as a mussel in the next 50,000 years, and then as a tapeworm for another 50,000 years. These types of worms or mollusks have one common characteristic. Whether it is snails, mussels, or tapeworms, they all love to live in the dark. They like the darkness so much that they evolved to have a shell, and the like, a place convenient for them to hide inside and sleep. Therefore, most of his rebirths were snails, mussels, tapeworms, and the like, all of which have a shell or body covering to prevent any light from entering. That is, his behavioral formula and programming had been extended for and accumulated over infinite years such that he had grown fond of darkness. Secondly, he liked to sleep. Thirdly, he liked to hide in a quiet place so that no one can disturb him. So, he was reborn as 4 types of animals, 50,000 years each, for a total of 200,000 years. Finally, he came to an era when another Buddha, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, was born and came out to preach the Buddhist holy Dharma. Only then did he have the opportunity to take rebirth as a man. Following the behavioral formula and programming that he liked to become a monk in his past lives, he again became a monk. So, he became one of the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's disciples. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni told him, "This is how you lived your past lives. You liked to always be in the dark. You cared about nothing but your own life. You cherished your life so much that you always liked to sleep, thinking this would make you live longer. You enjoyed hiding in the dark and disliked the light." The Lord Buddha thus disclosed all the behavioral formula and programming of his disciple and said, "You have just finished your sufferings and earned a respite whereby your virtuous karmic rewards finally emerged. You could finally take rebirth to be a man and then ordained as a monk. Why are you still so fond of sleeping? You only have 7 days left to live. If you continue to sleep like this, you will be dead when you wake up. You will suffer from the negative retributions, again. That is, you will experience the same cycles of deaths and rebirths of 200,000 years or even more because that negative karma is often multiplied by geometric progressions. Because you used to be reborn as an animal for so many years that is 200,000 years, and the negative karma recurred endlessly. At last, you found a turning point, whereby you made a breakthrough, with the help of a little bit of virtuous karma, to pull you out so that you could take rebirth into a human being again. But you have to know how long a human being can live, only a few decades. Consider the disparity between a few decades and 200,000 years. What a huge difference. Why is there such a disparity? Because you have been dragged down by the behavioral formula and programming in your aggregate of perceptions. In other words, in your aggregate of perceptions. The ratio of the behavioral formula and programming that you wish to take rebirth as a human being and become a monk to the behavioral formula and programming that you want to hide and sleep in the dark is too far apart. That is, 99.9% of the behavioral formula and programming in your aggregate of perceptions are to sleep and to hide in the dark, the two of your favorites. In comparison, only 0.01% of your behavioral formula and programming consider becoming a monk or becoming a human being so you can practice the Dharma in the future. Hence the great disparity. You will end up with a ratio of 200,000 years to several decades. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni continued, according to your current karmic retributions, if you continue to sleep like this, you will soon die in sleep. The moment you wake up, you will have taken rebirth as one of these animals. After listening to the Lord Buddha, the bhikshu realized that his laziness in this life was due to so many behavioral formulas and programming that remained unchanged within the aggregate of perceptions of his past lives. That was why he behaved like this in his present life. So, he felt deeply ashamed of himself. He knew he was about to face death and even the negative retributions of 200,000 years or more in the future. Because he did not cherish the Vipayan Buddha's teachings in one of his past lives, he had to suffer from his negative retributions for 200,000 years. The negative retributions were not a punishment from the Buddha, but because he did not change his own behavioral formula and programming. This was why he had such a result. If you do not cherish, those evil karmic retributions will multiply, and the virtuous karmic retributions will also be weakened, resulting in 200,000 years of negative retributions. Now, but you have met the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni. Yet again you fail to cherish the virtuous karma and die. Then your evil karmic retributions will not only multiply a few times but by a lot of geometric progressions. It could be 200,000 years then multiplied by n times. It would be like this. As such, it is actually terrifying. So what did the bhikshu do? He repented instantly. He was very scared and horrified. He deeply blamed himself and repented. At that time, for some reason, he was overwhelmed by a sense of fear, the deepest heartfelt fear, possibly coming from the aggregate of perceptions. His aggregate of perceptions was constantly operating at that time. I am so scared. I am really terrified. It turns out to be like this. What should I do? I must practice the Dharma. I must repent and work hard in my Dharma practice. Consequently, he recalled all the teachings the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni had taught him in his life from his aggregate of perceptions. It appeared that all of them were dug out from the bottom of the warehouse, and then enlarged until all the old behavioral formula and programming in his aggregate of perceptions had been replaced. All those thoughts of wanting to sleep and liking to stay in the darkness were emptied together. He emptied all those obstacles, all at once. Then, he dug out all those concerning the Dharma practice from the bottom of the warehouse, such as the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings of how to practice the Dharma, how to enter a meditative state, how to remove the 5 aggregates, and any other teachings like, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. He dug out all these and practiced accordingly. However, the behavioral formula and programming within his aggregate of perceptions disliked the 5th step, to cultivate that bodhicitta. He only wished to take care of himself. As long as he could succeed in his own Dharma practice, he had no time to save others. Or he thought he was incapable of saving others. So, he would not save others and succeed in practicing the 5th step. Nevertheless, he was capable of attaining some meditational power. He removed all those behavioral formulas and programming which had been his obstacles from the 5 aggregates. So, he succeeded in replacing all the behavioral formulas and programming in his aggregate of perceptions of the 5 aggregates, and became an arhat in 7 days. It was incredible. After changing the 5 aggregates, namely form, sensation, perception, mental formation, and consciousness, it was in just 7 days before his death that he attained the fruition of the arhat. It can be very speedy. In fact, if you make the best of your aggregate of perceptions and are capable of changing your behavioral formula and programming, You can obtain the driving force from the deepest, repentance, and fear, the most powerful energy, to instantly replace 99.9% of the negative things in your aggregate of perceptions and remove those obstacles. And you can then expand the best of the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings from 0.1% to 100%. So, the disciple became an Arhat. But he could not attain Buddhahood because he did not practice the fifth step. So, how do we practice the Dharma? By linking with those behavioral formulas and programming. I have said this before. In daily life, we must make use of everything in our visualization practice. We must practice from step 1 to step 5 all at once to be successful in our Dharma practice. Then the object of our visualization practice can be divided into those with form and appearance, and those without form and appearance. There are characters in the visualization practice with a form and appearance. How do you practice? Imagine if you were that bhikshu, or being yourselves. Think of your worst behavioral formula and programming when you are free. What are they? Would you lose your temper and curse others when they are not good to you? This could be your worst behavioral formula and programming. Would you swear at others using bad language or even hit others or slap them in the face? This could be your worst behavioral formula and programming. When you are free, search your aggregate of perceptions. What are your worst behaviors? Change and replace those behavioral formulas and programming with Buddhist holy Dharma, those best teachings from your guru. Replace them all. Once your aggregate of perceptions has been changed, you will make speedy progress. This is how we practice the Dharma in daily life. In terms of characters, you have to think of yourselves first. As for events, what makes you the worst? What emotions, when triggered, will become your weakest point, preventing you from succeeding in your Dharma practice? What thoughts do you have the most that hinder your Dharma practice? Among all scenes, of all things in your surroundings, what bothers you the most and hinders your Dharma practice? You have to dig out all of them from your aggregate of perceptions, find them all. Then induce them into the state of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. How do we incorporate them into our Dharma practice? Use our compassion and bodhicitta as our protagonists' primary goals. We will then use all these objects of visualization as ancillary conditions to assist our Dharma practice in entering the state of emptiness. If you fail to induce them into emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, you will lack the fifth step. Then you will require at least 2.5 asamkhya kalpas. Okay, as for the visualization practice details, how do we incorporate them into our Dharma practice to include all 5 steps together? How do we solve the difficulties and problems in real life? Let us use this case as an example. Firstly, you must see yourselves as the victim who is suffering. That is, you see yourselves suffering in the human realm of the 3 realms. Many things are forcing you to live in difficulties. All matters, such as birth, senility, illness, and death, are bothering you. As such, you are being trapped in the cycle of karmic existence. You must see yourselves as a victim suffering in the cycle of karmic existence and not a person enjoying sleep. If these are the things you like the most, you must know that you should not be obsessed with them, indulging in pleasure. Secondly, due to your love for sleep, or when you fall in love with a house, you work extremely hard to pursue it and become its slave. Or if you like sleeping very much, whichever situation it is, you must know what you are in love with them, therefore, be trapped in the 5 aggregates. You are under their control. You have to make a wish not to abide in sleep. This means that whatever your weakest point is, you must make a wish not to abide in that thing or event. In this case, it is sleeping. So, the bhikshu must make a wish not to abide in the notion of sleep. Now I would like to explain this aggregate of perceptions, which is the behavioral formula and programming of our thoughts. What are the elements of it? It is a kind of behavioral formula and programming hidden in thoughts of our present life, formed by the substantive behaviors of our numerous past lives. That is, as many as 90% of the behavioral formula and programming in the aggregate of perceptions are accumulated in our past lives. They are hidden but not created in this life. But maybe 10% are some behavioral formulas and programming you have conceived in this life. For example, you have learned something in this life, and you like it very much. So you turn it into a kind of behavioral formula and programming and then mix it with the hidden ones to form your aggregate of perceptions. If we do not change our ways of thinking in this life to Dharma practice, or Buddhist holy Dharma, which we use as the leading formula and programming of our thoughts, we will definitely continue to take rebirth in the cycle of karmic existence. We will have no chance to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. So, we must practice the Dharma. But what exactly must we do in our Dharma practice? What is Dharma practice? Dharma practice is to correct your behaviors. This is Dharma practice. How to correct your behaviors. This is done in your daily life. You say, "No, I can't do it." Many of my disciples told me that they are very pious when facing the Buddhist altar and Buddha statue during the formal meditation sessions. When they practice the Dharma, they concentrate on the rituals and nothing else. They follow exactly my instructions in their visualization practices. They think they have really done a good job in their Dharma practice. They can visualize anything as they wish. They said that they have been successful in their Dharma practice at the formal meditation sessions. But they also said to me, "Master, it is unfortunate. As soon as I return to my daily life, I will revert to what I used to be, or sometimes even worse. I cannot control my temper. I am not pleased with everyone. Everyone else is not doing the right thing. All of them are very bad. Of course, except for myself. I am better than them." When scolding themselves, my disciples only asked themselves why they got angry easily, and that was all. They cannot see how bad they are. When they get into trouble, they will only blame others, thinking it is 99% likely to be others' faults and only 1% their own. The fact is that they will fail to correct their own behaviors because they cannot correct them in their daily lives. If you only practice the Dharma during the formal meditation sessions when there is nothing to disturb you, you can do it, of course. But when you die and enter the spiritual realm, all your karmic creditors will come to you. At that time, your state will be much worse than the state in daily life. How can you not lose your temper? How can you not be panicky and overwhelmed? How can you still have the opportunity to sit in front of the Buddhist altar and practice the Dharma slowly? You only practice the Dharma at that time. Think about the ratio of 23 hours in daily life to 1 hour of your Dharma practice during the formal meditation sessions. How high is your failure rate? Therefore, you must link your Dharma practice with daily life so that the ratio becomes 24 hours to 24 hours. Then your success rate will be high, will it not? As said previously, in daily life, we must correct the behavioral formula and programming of our thoughts hidden in the aggregate of perceptions and change all of them to Buddhist holy Dharma and Dharma practice. Then we can be successful in Dharma practice. How to change? I cannot understand what is stated in the Diamond Sutra regarding should not abide anywhere. I also do not know how to link the Dharma practice with daily life. In fact, I have just taught you how to practice it. You have to practice in this way to succeed. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni already said at the beginning that you must first visualize the impermanence. The bhikshu failed to do so and was reborn as animals for 200,000 years until he finally had a gap of a few decades to practice the Dharma. However, he did not cherish the opportunity and practice. It was all due to him not visualizing the impermanence, so he would rather go to sleep, thinking a few decades were a long time. I have been a disciple of the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni for a few decades. He must offer his blessings on me. The Lord Buddha will definitely carry out the practice of Dharma for the deceased to help me when I die, so I can become a human again. I will not be so fond of sleeping again in my next life, so it should be okay to sleep in this life. He did not understand one thing. If this works, it would have worked in the Vipayana Buddha's time. At that time he was already a monk. And he was a disciple who took refuge from a Buddha. Why was he still reborn as a bug for 200,000 years? In other words, both the blessings and the practice of Dharma for the deceased had failed to help him. Why did they fail? Master, have you not said that it would be successful by practicing the Dharma method of 100 peaceful and wrathful deities? You said it would work for anything. Now, you say it will not work. Is it not contradictory? It is not contradictory. It is because your aggregate of perceptions has gone wrong. For example, can the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni use his supernatural powers to save you from being an animal? Since your aggregate of perceptions is very fond of sleeping, you will take rebirth as a bug in less than a second when you die. When that happens, can the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni kill the bug to bring you back? It is impossible. He would have to wait for the bug to die. In other words, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni must have a lot of free time to keep waiting. Did he not have to teach other disciples? Did he have to ignore sentient beings other than the human realm, like those from the spiritual realm searching for the Dharma from him? That is, did he do nothing but concentrate on looking after you alone and wait until the bug died? Well, the bug finally died, and there was a body of the Buddha. If your aggregate of perceptions was not so bad that you would fall into the animal realm and become a bug again in a second, there might be still 5 seconds available for the Lord Buddha to save you. Then you could use these 5 seconds to try with his supernatural powers and visualization powers to influence your mental consciousness so that your visualization would be in line with his. The Lord Buddha would then visualize the Buddha's Pure Lands or the human realm, trying to help you visualize being a human again and then pull you out to take rebirth as a human being. Actually, it would be challenging to do all these. First of all, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni did not have so much time. There are many time-space constraints in the 3 realms. Only when you have entered the Dharma realm, you will have no such constraints. The law of causes and effects operates in the 3 realms, so there are many constraints. If your aggregate of perceptions is relatively bad, it really can take less than 1 second for you to be reborn as a bug after death. The Lord Buddha really did not have enough time to save you. He did not even have enough time to practice any Dharma method. But why did you say it will work to practice the Dharma method of 100 peaceful and wrathful deities? It still has to wait for an opportunity. It has to wait after practicing this Dharma method. Do you think that one can jump out of the hell or the body of a bug by simply practicing this Dharma method? It still has to wait. However, this Dharma practice is an appeal for help from 100 peaceful and wrathful deities. If 99 of them are busy, there will be one of them or any of their family members and retinue and Dharma protectors available. There will always be someone available. Please help me watch over the bug and see when it will die and whether it will only take rebirth as a bug after 5 seconds. If so, please use these 5 seconds to save it. So, you still have to practice this Dharma method. But does it guarantee success in saving him after practicing the Dharma method of 100 peaceful and wrathful deities? It still has to wait for an opportunity. The same goes for the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni. Why did the Viparayan Buddha wait for 200,000 years and still have no such an opportunity? Because the aggregate of perceptions of the bhikshu was too powerful. He liked sleeping and being in the dark too much. When he died each time, there was not even 1 second for the Buddha to practice the Dharma to save him and influence his aggregate of perceptions. As a result, he kept being reborn as a bug for 200,000 years. Finally, there was a gap that allowed him to come out and become a human and trigger some programs in his aggregate of perceptions. Go and be a monk quickly. Go and take refuge from the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni quickly. So, he became the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's disciple, a result of the Viparayan Buddha's blessings then. Really? One had to be a bug for 200,000 years even after being blessed by the Buddha? Of course. How horrid is the cycle of karmic existence? The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni already told you this countless times. It is just that you do not believe it. Now let me tell you again. I will analyze it again to let you know how difficult it is. Even a Buddha may fail in saving you. He must use your own mental consciousness to save yourselves. How to influence your mental consciousness to save yourselves? It would rely on the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's preaching for 49 years. He then taught you how to practice the Dharma, be good and correct your aggregate of perceptions. No, I will not correct it even if I die. My 99% of aggregate of perceptions prefers to sleep. I will never change. How can Buddha save you? Since you are so fond of sleeping, then go to sleep as you like. But the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was really compassionate. He would try with the last effort even he had only 7 days. And the result was a success. But what did the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni teach them regarding how to practice the Dharma? You must visualize the impermanence, and cherish the only few decades to practice the Dharma. If you do not visualize the impermanence, you will not work hard to practice the Dharma. If you do, you will practice the Dharma diligently. You will practice the Dharma diligently if you only have a few days left to live. You will never practice the Dharma if you still have several thousand years to live. So, you must visualize the impermanence, and urge yourselves to practice the Dharma as quickly as you can. Because the ratio of 200,000 years to decades is far too big. How do you know what you did before? When it comes to the retributions of hells, it will not be 200,000 years but billions of years. According to the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, the most important thing is to change the databases of the 5 aggregates. What was the worst thing that got the bhikshu into trouble? It was the aggregate of perceptions, the database of thoughts. What is aggregate of perceptions? It is a behavioral formula and programming. The behavioral formula and programming that prefers to sleep and be in the dark should be changed. If not, even the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni cannot save you. Therefore, what must you do to the behavioral formulas and programming constituted by your thoughts in this life? You must replace all of them with Buddhist holy Dharma and Dharma practice. You must learn from that bhikshu. Even if you have only 0.1% of intention to learn Buddhist holy Dharma or practice Dharma, you must turn that into 100%. Replace all the obstacles, the negative behavioral formulas and programming of the 5 aggregates. Remove them all. You must practice the Dharma like this. Okay, in terms of events, you have to see that your life and time to practice the Dharma are eroded by sleep, the chief culprit. You must make a wish not to abide in the notion of sleep. That is, if you have the time and really want to practice the Dharma, how can you correct your own behavior? You only know it yourselves. How do we as Guru Masters know? You know yourselves best. When you have the time, think about your own worst behavioral formula and programming. In this bhikshu's case, his worst behavior was sleeping, and reluctance to practice the Dharma. He had to practice the Dharma targeting the issue of sleeping. Emotions. You must be aware of your emotions and to what extent they are aroused. You must see what your emotions have fallen into. Being drowsy and only wanting to sleep, needless to ask. What were the bhikshu's emotions? They were drowsiness, laziness, and wisdomless. He slept like a fool. Even when the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni came, knocked on the door, and gave a lengthy speech, he was still asleep. It was not until the Lord Buddha told him that he was about to die and had only 7 days left to live that he woke up and realized what was happening. These are called wisdomless. Also, there was a lack of motivation. You have already fallen into these traps. You must see that your greed for sleep has reached level 10, that is, if you keep thinking about sleeping. What do you need to do? You must make a wish not to abide in the notion of sleep. In terms of thoughts, what thoughts did you come up with? What do you need to see in your own thoughts? The thoughts of wanting to sleep continuously. You want to avoid all affairs, not doing anything, hide in a corner, and find a cover for yourself because you enjoy being in the dark. These are what you keep liking and keep thinking about. You have fallen into a dangerous state of constantly wanting to enter a dream. You must know that these thoughts, wanting to sleep and how good it is to sleep after a meal, are the thoughts that will get you into serious trouble. You must be alert immediately. What must you do? You must make a wish immediately not to be so fond of sleeping. Well, what is meant by all scenes? Make use of all scenes as the path of advancement, and get the heart essences from all sorts of things. It means that we have to visualize that although sleep is good and necessary, it is not all we have. We will die one day. Nothing is permanent. No matter what you like, house or clothes, remember that nothing is permanent. They are not all you have. Please do not consider that they are all you have. You may have been dead one day when you wake up. You must think like this all the time. I might not wake up again tomorrow. I might die in my sleep now. I might not last out the night. When I wake up, I might have re-entered the ocean of sufferings and be trapped again by the chain of the ocean of sufferings in this cycle of karmic existence. I might be dragged by others to take rebirth. You must think like this. So, what should we do when we sleep? According to esoteric Buddhism, one has to carry out some Dharma practice before going to sleep. One must initiate the programming in entering into the Dharma realm. You have to do all of them. Secondly, its true essential nature is the state of oneness. It is emptiness, neither existence. All the things you are fond of will be disillusioned one day. What would you be then? You would really be a bug that sleeps all day long. You must develop compassion in your hearts towards sentient beings, including yourselves, who are being trapped in the cycle of karmic existence. Then you become wide awake and repent of your past cravings for sleep. You must repent based on the object of your cravings. Your repentance should be like prescribing the right medicine for the right disease. You must visualize that you are capable of restoring your crystal clarity of realizing and knowing, and breaking away completely from the attachment of the aggregate of perceptions. What do? You have to replace all the behavioral formulas and programming within your aggregate of perceptions. That means when we practice the Dharma in the three realms, how do we practice the neither existence aspect of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness in the Dharma practice? The visualization practice method is the one I have just taught. Consider and understand completely that sleep is a state of neither existence, and do not be attached to it. Do not abide in the notion of sleep, so you can be liberated from it. This is called the visualization practice method on the neither existence. It is also a method to visualize the nature of the five aggregates as emptiness. It is to replace the behavioral formula and programming in our five aggregates, especially those in the aggregate of perceptions, through our visualization practice. Let me explain in greater detail what are all scenes. Abiding in notions means that you are already trapped in a particular magnetic field. The more you abide in an object, for example, you like Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara very much. You even dream of Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. You see Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara during the day, at night, or even when you are asleep. Can you say that you have done a great job in your Dharma practice? My visualization ability is excellent. I can see Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara even when I am not dreaming. Is it not amazing? Of course, I can tell everybody how excellent I am. I am afraid to say, however, that you are just practicing steps 1 to 4 even if you can see Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. No matter how good you are in your Dharma practice, if you lack meditational power, you cannot enter the 5 heavens of no returning to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. You are still in a dangerous position and will continue to suffer in this cycle of karmic existence. It is only a matter of time when you will fall. As a matter of fact, you are trapped by a certain magnetic field and abide in an ocean. Why? It is because many sentient beings in the spiritual realm have the ability to project. They can project anything to you like 3D or 4D projectors. You like Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara very much. Knowing this, your karmic creditors will turn into the image of Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara and lead you into their prison when you die. You will slowly fall into their trap. This is the result of abiding in notions. Let me tell you, you will be trapped in a particular magnetic field and your karmic creditors can see that. You will enter that magnetic field. What state will you be? Sooner or later, you will get into a dangerous state. So, you must remember not to be trapped by the magnetic fields of some material substances, or abiding in notions. Moreover, do not be trapped by your karmic creditors making use of these magnetic fields. They will use related parties or anything that influences you to create pitfalls to trap you, and you will be trapped. How do we lift it? Abiding in notions. It means that you have to be liberated. If you can lift it, abiding in notions, you can be liberated from the control of this magnetic field. It also means that you can be liberated from the state of danger. As such, the abiding in notions of Dharma practice is dangerous, which I will explain more later. What method do we use to lift it, abiding in notions? It is to repent. Repentance deals with the attachment of one's own mind, the over-attachment of one's own mind. As long as you admit your wrongdoings, the attachment of your own minds will be lifted. That is, you will create an exit to escape for yourselves. You do not go connect with those negative magnetic fields to trap yourselves. You do not take the initiative to connect your mental consciousness with those magnetic fields. You are, in fact, creating an exit to escape for yourselves. What do you do next? You need to trigger the merits of auxiliary forces. How do you trigger them? By visualizing the impermanence. You need to be aware that you will die soon and work hard in your Dharma practice. You need to work hard to replace the behavioral formula and programming of the aggregate of perceptions, otherwise, you will never replace them. You must fear the suffering of the cycle of karmic existence. You must know how painful the cycle of karmic existence is. If you do not practice the Dharma, you will take rebirth in the 3 lower realms, namely hell, hungry ghosts, and animals, which will be extremely painful. Once entering, you will be trapped there for a very long time. It will take more than hundreds of millions of years to take rebirth and come out again. Why did the bhikshu only have to be trapped and be a bug for 200,000 years? Because he had lots of merits. He was once a monk and a disciple of the Viparayan Buddha. Although he became a bug after death, the Viparayan Buddha could not crush him to death to save him. Instead, he did some Dharma practices to save his disciple and finally had an opportunity to pull him out to be reborn as a human after 200,000 years. But the opportunity only came after waiting for 200,000 years. You have not been a monk or nun, neither have you been a disciple of any Buddha. You have not even taken refuge. You do not have a guru master who can carry out a Dharma practice or wait for an opportunity to save you. What would happen to you? You would need to wait for hundreds of millions of years. That is your fate, remember. I am not lying to you or intimidating you. This is said according to the Buddhist sutras. I have already understated it. It is supposed to be hundreds of billions of years. I have said a lot fewer. So, you must remember to fear the suffering of the cycle of karmic existence. You must know how miserable you are when trapped by it. Please cherish the few decades you have now. How old are you now? 50-something? How many years do you think you can live? 30 years? 30 years is a short time, compared to hundreds of billions of years. I think it is very short. Do practice the Dharma as soon as possible. You also have to follow the correct Buddhist holy Dharma in your Dharma practice. If not, it will be in vain. What do you need to practice after all? From step 1 to step 5, all of them. It is no good to practice only from steps 1 to 4. It is necessary to complete all 5 steps. Okay, if we fear the suffering of the cycle of karmic existence, that is to say, for other related parties, we have to make confessions to our karmic creditors. The second step of the repentance is to seek forgiveness from the karmic creditors. When the karmic creditors forgive you, they will not aggravate the magnetic field, that is, your favorite things, or push other related parties to create some traps to harass you. Why? Think carefully. Why was the bhikshu so fond of sleeping? Why did he still like sleeping so much after becoming a human and listening to the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni? It was because those karmic creditors created a wonderful environment for him to sleep. There was a room with a beautiful bed for him. Then there were always people giving him the idea of sleeping. Go and have a nap since you are tired. There was always someone from the related parties who reminded him to go to sleep. Consequently, he could never turn his aggregate of perceptions to Dharma practice. Why did the karmic creditors do this? Because those karmic creditors would be thinking, if you succeed in your Dharma practice and be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, that means you will never pay off the debts you owe me. You are a Hinayana practitioner who never wishes to save others, including me. Then why should I let you go? You owe me so many debts: money debt, love debt, emotional debt, and even life debt. You owe me so much, and you want to walk away just like this. No way. Is there any way to harm this person so he cannot walk away? What does he like best? So, people who want to hurt others like to investigate what others like most and start from there. They found out that the bhikshu liked to sleep. Since he liked to sleep so much, let him sleep. Since he was so fond of sleeping, he would not practice the Dharma, so there was no way for him to escape. He often sleeps, which means that there is no way his aggregate of perceptions can be changed. Then I can hold him back all the way. Let him be a bug forever or be reborn in a worse place. So, I can have my revenge and get all the debts I'm after. These were the thoughts of his karmic creditors. They would think like this, being excited and delighted. They would be like this. So, you have to remember, why can you not get rid of this aggregate of perceptions? In addition to your own mental consciousness, in fact, the mental consciousness of your karmic creditors also plays a role. That is why you must also make confessions to them. You must resolve both kinds of mental consciousness together. This is the only solution to remove all the traps that get you into trouble. You also have to trigger the merits by the strength of yourselves. That is, you must be diligent in your Dharma practice. You need to know that all actions karmas will have causal effects. What is that all actions karmas will have causal effects? Of all the things you do, you have to understand what exactly you are doing now. Will it be black karma or white karma? What do you cultivate if you sleep a lot? Ignorance, wisdomless, reluctance to practice the Dharma, and getting yourselves into trouble. These are the black karmas. What is the white karma? It is to practice the Dharma diligently. Differentiate these. If not, you will make a lot of mistakes. Even if you become a bhikshu, you may still have committed many black karmas that trap you and prevent you from succeeding in your Dharma practice. If you know all actions karmas will have causal effects, you can use your virtuous karma to take rebirth in a good realm, a better place. What else do you need to do in your Dharma practice? You need to know the preciousness of 10 endowments. Do you know that it is a rare opportunity to have a few decades of leisure? It all depended on the Vipayan Buddha to practice the Dharma to bless you. After that, you still had to wait for an opportunity to take rebirth as a human after 200,000 years. Do you know that this opportunity is very rare? How can you not cherish these few decades? After you are dead, will there still be leisure and the same environmental conditions for you to practice the Dharma? So, how do you repent? It is necessary to prescribe the right medicine for the right disease, otherwise, the effectiveness will be reduced. What should you do? You should do repentance of your own minds. You must also do repentance to beg forgiveness from your karmic creditors. You should do repentance in this way as it is prescribing the right medicine for the right disease. This is called all scenes, and this method of repentance is a heart essence. If you fail to repent, even the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni cannot save you. If you do not repent, you may have fallen and reborn as a bug in less than a second. The Buddha will not have enough time to save you. As karma is drawn by the attractions of your own minds, you must resolve it yourselves. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni could only persuade you by your side. How to persuade you? He kept preaching the Buddhist holy Dharma to you, just like how I keep explaining the Buddhist holy Dharma in detail to you now. There is only one purpose, hoping that you will wake up and practice the Dharma to correct your mental consciousness and improve the behavioral formula and programming of your aggregate of perceptions. Only in this way can you be saved. But Master, I will be relying on you to practice the Dharma method of 100 peaceful and wrathful deities to save me. The main purpose of my taking refuge from you is that you will practice the Dharma method to save me when I die. The example of the bhikshu will remind you that it is imperative to practice the Dharma by yourselves. It will take a very long time to wait for others to save you. If you know this, you will have to be diligent in your own Dharma practice. In addition, you should not rely on the practice of Dharma for the deceased because it can only save you for a moment but not forever. I can save you now, just because I happen to have the 5 seconds to bring you back to become a human again before you completely become a bug. However, you are set to take rebirth as a bug again the next time you die. There will be no one to perform the practice of Dharma for the deceased for saving you when I am not with you, even if there are 10 seconds. So, you will fall to become a bug again. In other words, you can be saved for a moment, but not for a lifetime. That is, you cannot be saved permanently. In the end, you have to practice the Dharma yourselves and not rely on the practice of Dharma for the deceased. Back to the aggregate of perceptions, which is the most lethal database, among others. It will only take one single evil thought to become lethal. If you have left an evil thought in this database, and let it arise accidentally in the most dangerous and critical time, what would be the consequences? You will fall into the 3 lower realms immediately. When you are about to die, you suddenly come up with this evil thought with no reason, feeling angry and painful. So, you curse the whole world with bad language. You will be in big trouble if you die at that moment. You will definitely fall into the 3 evil realms immediately. Because the evil thought in your aggregate of perceptions will drag you to connect with those negative magnetic fields. You will then fall into the 3 evil realms instantly, faster than the speed of light. So, what is the best way to dismantle the aggregate of perceptions? It is essential to practice the Buddhist Holy Dharma teachings in daily life and correct the behavioral formulas and programming. Then you can really create an exit to escape for yourselves and resolve other troubles. Let us take a look now. How do we practice some teaching methods in our daily life in order to change our aggregate of perceptions into some behavioral formulas and programming of Dharma practice? The most important thing is to visualize the impermanence. When it comes to visualizing the impermanence, I discovered that some esoteric guru masters have a ritual to teach others how to visualize. It is called 100 Days of Mind Training. Once, a guru master gave me the ritual text of 100 Days of Mind Training, hoping that I would also teach it to my disciples. As you know, you cannot be more careful about the teaching materials. You must use your own experiences in actual practices and the level of realization to verify those rituals. You cannot simply teach them to others without much consideration. After reading the ritual text, I realized that there was something seriously wrong. But I did not dare to tell him because he was also a guru master. How did I dare to tell him that there were some mistakes in his ritual? I did not wish to offend a lot of people. Was I acting against my conscience then? I am not too sure about it. Nevertheless, I would never teach my disciples to practice this ritual. It turned out that his 100 Days of Mind Training ritual required people to visualize the 2 deities in Chinese folk religion called Heibai Wuchang, literally black and white impermanence. After you die, when you are not yet dead, you already have to visualize the black impermanence holding an iron chain, stretching out a very long tongue, walking towards you, and then dragging you down into hell. Then, there is white impermanence, together with the black impermanence, each grabbing an iron chain to catch you. You are also required to visualize many other things, such as hells etc. I questioned, my goodness. Have you ever practiced the Dharma? It turns out that you do not know it. It means that you have not achieved the level, so you do not know the danger. If you do have experiences in actual practices, you will know the danger. Do you not know that visualization means making a connection? I have already said this for 10,000 times. Visualization means making a connection. I will say it one more time. When you visualize the black and white impermanence, it is equivalent to you connecting with black and white impermanence. According to your original virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, you have virtuous karma and you are supposed to take rebirth as a human in your next life. Unfortunately, but you have added a behavioral formula and programming into the aggregate of perceptions of this life and practice the ritual day and night. 100 Days of Mind Training means that you have completed a 100-day retreat. But it does not mean that you only need to practice this ritual for 100 days. You have to practice it every day. Imagine you spend 100 days in a retreat, 24 hours a day, connecting with black and white impermanence. Following the retreat, you still connect with black and white impermanence every day, 24 hours a day. Wow, you are connecting with hell. That means you will surely die even if you do not want to. Consequently, only those connections with evil karma are left in the behavioral formula and programming of your aggregate of perceptions. You have done a lot of virtuous karma. How do you end up like this now? It is all because of your guru master, who has not reached a certain level in his Dharma practice, yet teaches people a ritual casually. Do you know that I have been to a large store in Taiwan that specializes in selling Buddhist items? The building has 3 floors and is very large. When I went in, I could see the wall cabinet full of books on Dharma practice rituals. When I opened the drawers, there were so many ritual texts in Tibetan, Chinese, and even English. Then I wanted to ask, could these rituals save you? The Diamond Sutra also claims to save you, but can you understand and apply it? There has to be a guru master to guide you through. They must have reached a certain level in their Dharma practice, knowing what they are talking about and not only explaining it literally. They have to explain it to you in depth, so you know how to practice it. Same with these rituals. After reading them, the guru master has to practice them first to ensure no problem with all the connections. Then they can teach the disciples. If you have not practiced them yourselves and then casually teach others with those rituals given to you by others or purchased by yourselves in a store, you will not know some of the specific details in them and what they're connected with. It turns out that the magnetic field is so bad, yet you teach your disciples to put it in their aggregate of perceptions. Look how miserable the bhikshu was. Just because he liked to sleep, he died miserably. Now you teach your disciples to connect with black and white impermanence, to connect with health. They will surely die even more miserably than that bhikshu. We will never allow this to happen. This is why I did not teach my disciples to practice this ritual. I kept the text in a corner, somewhere even I cannot find it myself now. In short, I dared not practice it and dared not teach it. I would never teach it. But I did not dare to tell him that it was wrong. I hope that it is sufficient to tell you publicly now. Although I do not have the courage to tell that Guru Master, I am responsible for correcting Dharma practices which sentient beings will follow. If I do not speak out and save them despite knowing they will be miserable, am I not doing some evil karmas by acting against my conscience? I have talked about this several times internally. I cannot remember if this is the first or second time I say this publicly. I may have said it once, but that lecture video was only released in the form of a CD and was not made public on YouTube. However, the session today will be uploaded to YouTube. So, I will say it once more here. I hope that if a guru master you find teaches you to practice a ritual that involves visualizing anything belonging to the 3 evil realms, listen to me, do not practice this ritual. You are bound to downfall. Do not practice it. Because visualization means making a connection. Therefore, you must not practice it. Do not abide in notions of fear and panic. There should not be such elements in any ritual. You may say, visualizing the impermanence surely has the element of panic. That bhikshu panicked when he heard that he only had 7 days to live and would soon be reborn as a bug. He was frightened, thinking what a bug looked like. So, he worked hard to practice the Dharma and attain the holy fruit of Arhat in 7 days. You now tell me not to abide in the notions of fear. How should I practice then? How to visualize the impermanence. This is how the impermanence should be visualized. For any visualization, such as visualization of the impermanence, you should replace it with another target. How to replace it? You must visualize like this: I only have a few decades left in my life, and it will soon end. All your visualizations should be connected to the daily life of the human realm. Why? If you link up with daily life, you can still take rebirth as a human being in the worst situation. If you connect with black and white impermanence, hells, animals, or hungry ghosts, you will be in the worst position to take rebirth in the realm of hells, hungry ghosts, or animals. You will let the black and white impermanence catch you. So, we should not connect with them. It is best not to let them know where we are. Why still let them come to find us? So, this is how we should practice the Dharma in daily life. Some people accidentally trample on an ant while walking. They must repent and practice Dharma for the dead, such as the life-releasing ritual I taught you before. This is the most basic ritual of practicing Dharma for the deceased. It helps the dead sentient beings be liberated from their animal bodies by praying to some Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, carrying out some visualization practices, and reciting the holy names of some Buddhas. This ritual focuses on liberation from the animal body, so it is also the fundamental teaching. We will have a fish releasing ceremony on the 4th of November. You can attend and learn this ritual. If you accidentally trample on an ant, even if you cannot practice this ritual on the spot immediately, you must make a promise. You will say, "I'm sorry, I accidentally trampled on you. Sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm fully aware of impermanence and that all lives are easily disillusioned in an instant. I've committed evil karma now in an instant by accidentally killing you. I now know the horror of impermanence. No worries. I'm going to recite the Buddha's holy names or mantras 3 times for you now. I will pray and implore the Buddha Amitabha or the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara or the Buddha of this mantra I'm chanting to help you. You need to recite it 3 or 7 times. You should first promise it by saying, I know how to practice the life-releasing ritual. I will definitely practice the ritual within 7 days after I go home and dedicate the merits specifically to you. I will first help you with a new name. Your name is called Impermanence, or Life of Impermanence, or Man of Impermanence. In the future, I will rename you Man of Impermanence number 1. When you dedicate merits during your Dharma practice in the future, you will dedicate the merits to Man of Impermanence number 1. What is the benefit of this? It has been given a human name, which means that it stands a good chance to take rebirth as a human being. You have helped it connect as a human. Its name has already had a human title. Man of Impermanence is to remind it and yourselves to remember impermanence. I am now teaching you how to visualize the impermanence and connect it with daily life. I am teaching you now. You have renamed this sentient being impermanence. How can you forget impermanence? You dedicate merits to them every day. How can you forget impermanence? You will definitely remember. An ant's life can be gone instantly. So, you must cherish the few decades of your life to practice the Dharma. This is how you connect the Dharma practice with daily life, the sentient beings and yourselves. This will enable this sentient being, when it becomes a human in the future, to have the mental consciousness of impermanence and diligently look for things to help itself. This is an example I give to teach you. What is your goal? What do you see you visualizing these? What is the purpose of you visualizing the impermanence? To be diligent in Dharma practice. Life is so short, so I must work hard to practice the Dharma. What is the real goal? It is to be diligent in Dharma practice. You should not get into a dead end on the matter of impermanence. What should you do? You should endeavor to practice the Dharma diligently. So, visualizing the impermanence should be replaced with another goal. What should you do in your visualization practice? I have already taught you. Also, you need to visualize the preciousness of 10 endowments. It is really precious, a few decades versus hundreds of billions of years. How precious these decades are. So, you must cherish them. While visualizing the preciousness of 10 endowments, you must conform to the 5 conditions and methods I have just mentioned. In your visualization practice, you must fear the suffering of the cycle of karmic existence. You must be afraid of samsara. However, do not visualize a hell when you're afraid of hell. Do not visualize an animal when you're afraid of animals. Do not visualize in this way, as it will get you into trouble. To fear the suffering of the cycle of karmic existence, you must meet all the 5 conditions I have said earlier in your visualization practice, linking with all the goals I have just taught. Know the black and white karmas. You need to know what is good and what is bad to guide you. This visualization must also meet all these 5 conditions, according to the example I have given. In short, it must be linked to daily life. Regardless of Hinayana, Mahayana, or Vajrayana, these 4 visualization practices are unanimously recognized as the most important foundations. They are only useful if practiced by connecting with daily life, instead of sitting in front of a Buddha statue during a formal meditation session and reciting this once. I would like to practice visualizing the impermanence preciousness of 10 endowments, fearing the suffering of the cycle of karmic existence, and knowing the black and white karmas. That is all. I have finished the job and can go to sleep now. Your Dharma practice should not be like this. You should practice the Dharma in daily life. What is the real Dharma practice? Some people say that Dharma practice is the recitation of Buddha's holy names, mantras, and sutras. How good I am! I recite mantras in my daily life. I recite mantras and Buddha's holy names during walking, standing, sitting, and lying. I have visualized myself as a deity. I have visualized myself connecting with the Buddha's pure lands. But many people lack the fifth item. They fail to practice the very core element of the Great Perfection, Heart Sutra, and Diamond Sutra, namely, the Absolute Bodhicitta. That is, they do not practice the fifth step. If you do not practice this fifth step, even if you have done very well from the first to the fourth steps, you will not be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. You must include bodhicitta to practice emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, in order to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. In addition, you have to practice the Dharma teachings and Dharma practices, behavioral formulas and programming in daily life. You really have to practice them in your daily life. Also, you must adhere to the precepts and disciplines in order to succeed in your Dharma practice. Okay, let us review this case now. In this case, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was actually standing in front of this bhikshu. You often visualize deities, such as Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, Buddha Amitabha, and Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, thinking that you would be saved if you were able to visualize them. Think of this bhikshu. The Buddha was standing right in front of him. There was no need to visualize or make a connection. The Buddha was already standing right in front of him. He could already see the Buddha, yet he still had to take rebirth as an animal. Why? As the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni already said, if you do not practice the Dharma, you will only have 7 days to live. If you miss these 7 days, you will continue to take rebirth as an animal, and you will go to hell if you fall further down. Why did the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni still ask the bhikshu to continue to practice the Dharma diligently before death? Why did the Lord Buddha tell the bhikshu that he would take rebirth in the 3 lower realms if he did not immediately practice the Dharma? Would the Lord Buddha not save him from the 3 lower realms right away? As I have already explained, it was impossible to do so. The program of your aggregate of perceptions is so fast that you would have already become a bug. Also, as I said previously, it takes 3.5 days to go through the process of death. While carrying out the Dharma practice for you during the 3.5 days, you would still be in a coma and could not enter the meditative concentration. It is because you like to sleep so much. During those 3.5 days, you must have gone to sleep. When you wake up after the 3.5 days, you will fail to cherish the moment of less than 1/20th of a second. Since you never practiced meditative concentration when you were alive, you will fail to grasp the opportunity. Neither did you practice the Dharma in daily life, and so you could not master it. That is, you will miss the opportunity again. It is way too fast when you come out of your physical body. At that moment, you have not yet entered the spiritual realm. Due to the serious problem of your aggregate of perceptions, 99% of which wanting to sleep, you will be instantaneously dragged down to take rebirth as a bug the moment that you leave your body. Consequently, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni could not save you, as you were too quick in becoming a bug. He could not stand by your side to monitor you for 3.5 days. Sometimes it is not necessarily 3.5 days, maybe just 1.5 days when you leave your physical body. How did he predict the time when it would happen to you? There were many things the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni had to do. Many disciples were still waiting to be saved by him. How could he have time to watch over you constantly? So, you would have a big problem. That is why the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni told his disciple, you must practice the Dharma as soon as possible. It is because even if the Buddha is right in front of you, he cannot save you as long as you do not wish to practice the Dharma to remove the 5 aggregates. The obstacle from the aggregate of perceptions in particular. Even if he is capable of pulling you out of the 3 lower realms, since the aggregate of perceptions of your 5 aggregates is too powerful. You will fall back into the three lower realms in an instant. Do you think that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni will once again stand in front of you to save you when you become a bug next time? It is simply impossible without the coincidence of various causes and conditions. As such, the Heart Sutra urges that all sentient beings must succeed in visualizing the five aggregates as all empty. Why must one visualize the five aggregates as all empty? So that they will not be able to get hold of you. So, you will not be faster than what Buddhas and Bodhisattvas do to save you from being reborn in the three lower realms. That the nature of the five aggregates as emptiness is an oral pith instruction from the Heart Sutra. This is the reason why this sutra has such an oral pith instruction. Therefore, you must remember that reciting Buddha's holy names, reciting mantras, reciting sutras, visualizing deities, and visualizing Buddha's Pure Lands are all called the Dharma practices of abiding in notions. On the other hand, only the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness taught by the Great Perfection, Heart Sutra, and Diamond Sutra, is truly the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions. You must be clear about this. I am now helping you clear all your confusion in one go. What is my Dharma practice about? There are so many Guru Masters. One recommends this particular empowerment. Another one says that reciting Buddha's holy names is invincible. Which one is correct, Guru Master? I am telling you now. You will be clear once you have understood these. In fact, there are only two methods of Dharma practice, abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions. What a Diamond Sutra teaches is very precise. Its oral pith instructions are all about abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions, nothing else. You can tell that this is indeed the core of the core. Some people ask, is non-abiding in notions equal to formless? Of course not. Some of my disciples told me how good they are. They have practiced the Dharma until there is nothing left. Everything has been emptied, nothing left. Not even a speck of single dust. This is called a formless. Is formless equal to non-abiding in notions? Of course not. Non-abiding in notions means that there are many notions, forms, or appearances, but I do not abide in any of them. Instead, I have used the Tathagata's ability to see through their true essential nature. It is illusory and fake. I will not be attached to it. I will not abide in notions. I will not be deceived by those external appearances. Non-abiding in notions does not mean to formless. As I said earlier, do not be deceived by those who want to teach you formless Dharma practice and claim that it is invincible and the best. Then you will be trapped in the formless realm. In fact, there are a lot of forms and appearances. As taught by the Diamond Sutra, it is normal to see many forms and appearances in daily life. However, all forms and appearances are nothing but illusions. You ought to have the Tathagata's ability to observe and realize and know, then your realizing and knowing will be gradually restored and corrected. If you say you have done greatly and scored 100 points in your Dharma practice, and are capable of reciting the Buddha's holy name without any disturbance of thoughts and keeping your mind without inversion for 1 to 7 days, it can be considered as a kind of success in the Dharma practice of abiding in notions. Let's say you have really succeeded, then you can only be reborn in the Buddha's Pure Lands. This is the best that you can achieve. But you will not be able to attain Buddhahood. What would happen if you are unsuccessful? You will then take rebirth as according to your own karmas. What about the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions? In case of success, and you have done great and scored 100 points, you will attain Buddhahood. If you do not do well and fail, you will then take rebirth according to your karma. You may ask, Master, isn't there not much difference between the two? Both scenarios will, if unsuccessful, lead to taking rebirth according to karma. You must remember that esoteric Buddhism pays great attention to one thing: how to combine the Dharma practices of abiding in notions and of non-abiding in notions. What are the benefits of this? If you succeed, you will attain Buddhahood. If you fail and fall back out of the Dharma realm, you will still know how to connect with the Buddha's Pure Lands. When you fall back out of the Dharma realm, you will not straight away fall into the realm of hells, hungry ghosts, or animals. Neither will you fall into the realm of humans. Instead, you will fall into the Buddha's Pure Lands. It means that you will get another second-class success. In other words, there will not only be option 1 and option 2. You will have one more option. If still unsuccessful, you will then take rebirth according to your karma. But you can still be reborn in some better places. Because you have included all from step 1 to step 5 in your Dharma practice, there is a bodhicitta in it. Do you know that once you have restored 5% of your bodhicitta, the 5% of love bodhicitta will stay with you? If you have restored 10% of your bodhicitta, the 10% of love bodhicitta will stay with you forever. That is why you must observe love bodhisattva precepts. Because if you have observed the bodhisattva precepts, they will stay with you forever and protect you. So, if you have practiced from step 1 to step 5, and there is step 5 in your Dharma practice program, you will have many times the advantage over others. You will be better than others in option 1, option 2, and even option 3. That is, you will have more advantages than others even if you must take rebirth according to your karma. You will not so easily fall into the 3 lower realms. You will enter the 3 higher realms. Although you are not yet liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, you will go to the 3 higher realms. You can imagine how important it is to include the 5th step in your Dharma practice. What does it mean by being reborn in the Buddha's Pure Lands? It means that, on the one hand, once you have reached the 5 heavens of no returning, the highest 5 levels of the realm of form, you will not return to take rebirth. Thus, it is called the 5 heavens of no returning. On the other hand, what would happen if you fail to enter the 5 heavens of no returning? You will be reborn in the Buddha's Pure Lands below the 5 heavens of no returning. What should you do then? It depends on how much merits you have accumulated before you continue to reincarnate. If you can reach the 5 heavens of no returning, it means that you can be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. How can you get there? It will depend on how many factors you have that can help you be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. What are the factors? The methods of your Dharma practice and the steps of their behavioral formula and programming are very important. There are a lot of guru masters who collect rituals and treat them like treasures. They buy and stock up a lot of them at home. Then they impart the rituals to the disciples who behave well and provide offerings. They would say, I have 100 rituals for you to choose from. If you like any particular ritual, for example, the Jamhala practice, then I will impart the Jamhala practice to you. This is no good because these are not the Dharma practices that can really help them to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. What should you do? It is not a question of practicing 100 rituals. You should focus on and practice the truly effective one. Then you will be successful in your Dharma practice. But if you make all your efforts on practicing 100 rituals, you cannot master one even though you have learned many techniques. If it is a complete practicing ritual text, one is enough. The most important thing is whether it has all the core elements, and none of them is missing. What does this mean? If you want to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, there must be some elements in the rituals you practice that will enable you to enter the 5 heavens of no returning. What are they? 1 is to cleanse and purify the 5 aggregates. Does your ritual contain any elements to cleanse and purity the 5 aggregates? If not, then it will not work. If there is, then it will depend on your Dharma practice level. You have scored 20, 50, or 60 points to determine whether you can enter the 5 heavens of no returning. Another important element is meditational power. Some practitioners of other religions do not know how to cleanse and purity the 5 aggregates. But they can succeed in practicing some other elements, such as sitting for meditation, and eliminating their own thoughts. They do not use Buddhist holy Dharma to replace their behavioral formulas and programming to help themselves enter the emptiness. What method do they use? The method of eliminating all the behavioral formulas and programming. They really delete all their behavioral formulas and programming and visualize that everything is empty in their brains. There is nothing at all. So what will happen? They will enter the Asanjani Sattva no-thought heaven, a heaven where there are no thoughts at all. But they will be trapped there like fools, and then go on like this. Why? They have eliminated everything, and there is no aggregate of perceptions left at all. So they will not fall from heaven because there is no behavioral formula and programming to drag them down. But they will be like fools. Do you want to become a fool? If you do not want to, you must practice the Buddhist Holy Dharma. What does the Buddhist Holy Dharma teach? What it teaches is extraordinary, the fifth step, bodhicitta. That is the program of neither existence nor voidness, which will not eliminate all your behavioral formula and programming. There is realizing and knowing in it. You will be in serious trouble once you have eliminated this realizing and knowing. You will be trapped in the formless realm, or the asanjani sattva no thought heaven, of the to-form realm. That is, you will be trapped in either one of the heavenly realms. Then you may question, how about reciting the Buddha's holy names? Some told me that reciting the Buddha's holy names is invincible. No need to learn anything. Just need to recite some holy names. In fact, some senior translators in Japan have already explained this, but you have not taken it seriously. They said that the word recitation should be interpreted and translated as visualization. Therefore, the title of the Sutra of Visualization of the Buddha of Infinite Life contains the words visualization. What does this sutra teach? It teaches you the 16 visualizations on the Buddha Amitabha. It is all about visualization, not recitation. Why do you insist on interpreting this word as recitation? If others point out that you have misinterpreted and mistranslated this word, you need to listen to what others say. Remember, recitation means visualization. It is not as simple as reciting the Buddha's holy names. You have to visualize the Buddhas. But you may ask, Guru Master, didn't you say that visualizing Buddhas is a Dharma practice of abiding in notions? Can one attain Buddhahood by adopting the Dharma practice of abiding in notions? It is impossible. Who says that? It is said by the Diamond Sutra, not me. I am not that great. It is from the Diamond Sutra. It is just that you fail to understand it and misinterpret it. I am only providing support and explaining it to you. It is simply impossible. Then you say, if whoever adopts the Dharma practice of abiding in notions cannot attain Buddhahood, that means one must adopt the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions, namely the emptiness. Neither existence nor voidness taught by the Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, and Great Perfection, before they can attain Buddhahood. Yes, that is correct. However, what results will I get if I score 100 points in my Dharma practice of abiding in notions? Not only do I recite the Buddha's holy name, but I also visualize the Buddha Amitabha without any disturbance of thoughts for 1 to 7 days. Congratulations! You can connect with Buddha Amitabha. What is the next step? Upon receiving your message, the next step is that the Buddha Amitabha will send someone to escort you to his Pure Land. What is next? When you are in the Buddha's Pure Land, it will depend on your Dharma practice level, how much of your 5 aggregates has been emptied, have you replaced your behavioral formulas and programming, and whether you have replaced 10% or 90% of them, to decide which heavenly realm you're in. If you are not in the 5 heavens of no returning, you still cannot be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. As long as you are in the heavenly realm below the 5 heavens of no returning, you still need to continue to suffer in the cycle of karmic existence. In other words, even if you get to the Buddha's Pure Land, it does not mean that you are already liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. Do you not know that the Buddha's Pure Lands can be divided into many types, as I said before? So, even if I can recite the Buddha's holy name to the point of without any disturbance of thoughts, I can only achieve this kind of results. What if I practice esoteric Buddhism? It teaches one to visualize the deities, which is similar to visualizing the Buddha Amitabha. Is there any difference? Of course, there is a difference. It depends on the ritual. I know 99% of the ritual texts on the Yidam deity practice taught by all the folk guru masters are of the Dharma practice of abiding in notions. There is no element of non-abiding in notions in these rituals. Even if there is, it is not as clear as what I explain now. Their explanation is not up to the standard but only literal. What will be the effect of a literal explanation? Just like the Diamond Sutra, you cannot understand it despite having read it for hundreds of years, and you do not know how to apply it to your Dharma practice. The same goes for those ritual texts. They just explained literally, you have to visualize yourself as Buddha Amitabha, and then visualize the emptiness. That's it. They did mention the key element, you have to visualize emptiness. But what is emptiness? Does visualizing emptiness mean that you visualize everything as empty and there is nothing at all? What is neither existence nor voidness? What is called neither existence, and what is called nor voidness? How do you combine the Dharma practices of abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions without mistakes? None of these has been said. They only read the ritual text to you once like this. You may feel that the emptiness has already been mentioned in it, but nothing is connected. Many core oral pith instructions and rituals are missing from it. It is impossible to succeed in such a Dharma practice. This tells you one thing: if you only recite the Buddha's holy names, even if you score 100 points in doing this, you can only connect with the Buddha Amitabha, who will then send someone to escort you to his Pure Land, where you will be ranked. If you visualize yourselves as deities, without the correct oral pith instructions on emptiness, and how to combine the Dharma practices of abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions, and without clear explanations, as I am giving you now, you will not make it. You may be able to go to a Buddha's Pure Land at most, but will it be one of the 5 heavens of no returning? It depends on your Dharma practice level and whether you have cleansed your 5 aggregates. According to my recent observations, all esoteric practitioners have not focused their efforts on purifying the 5 aggregates, but on pursuing empowerments. They are mainly concerned about which deity is more powerful and how many heads, hands, legs, and Dharma instruments the deity has. These are all part of the Dharma practice of abiding in notions being focused incorrectly. Formally speaking, these are not a true Buddhist holy Dharma, or not the Buddhist holy Dharma at all. To put it simply, they will not succeed in their Dharma practices. So, you have to remember that all Dharma practices with a high success rate have to be connected with daily life and based on the observation of precepts. You must understand the real principles and oral pith instructions of how they work in order to succeed. So, what is the focus of our teachings at the Dojon Buddhist Association International? It is to teach all the disciples the rituals, albeit very few, that contain the key elements to help them reach the 5 heavens of no returning. There will also be elements of non-abiding in notions. And these 2 elements will definitely be connected. And there will be detailed explanations, some of which have been said publicly as I do now. Why do I want to reinterpret the Heart Sutra and Diamond Sutra? They have been interpreted by many over the past 1 to 2,000 years. Many have written books about them. Why should I waste my time talking about them again? The reason is that I do not want you just to interpret the Diamond Sutra literally, because I think that many of the explanations are still substandard and merely literal. You may understand a little but not the profound meaning. Neither will you know where the core oral pith instructions are. And you will not know how to connect your Dharma practice with daily life, far from it. In short, you will only achieve 10% but not more than 80% of the functions of the Heart Sutra and Diamond Sutra. Therefore, I explained them again. So, you must understand that the Dharma practice of abiding in notions is actually a kind of teaching of interpretative and incomplete meanings. Only the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions is the true Buddhist holy Dharma, the correct Buddhist holy Dharma, the ultimate teaching of absolute meanings. What did Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, and Great Perfection say is the true Buddhist holy Dharma? Other Dharma practices of abiding in notions can only be considered the teaching of interpretative meanings at most. Can they be considered as 100% correct Buddhist holy Dharma? No, they cannot. But can you say that they are wrong? You cannot say that they are wrong, as long as they can help you connect to non-abiding in notions. You cannot say that they are wrong. But there is another type of Dharma practice called semblance Dharma, which resembles the true Buddhist holy Dharma. Is semblance Dharma the same as the Dharma of absolute meaning? I will explain it to you shortly. However, someone left a comment on Facebook recently. Please pay attention to what he said. It was unclear whether he was scolding me or not. Let us look at what he said. There are many theories in your Dharma teachings, but we are not short of them in Taiwan. There are much more varieties of theories of the Tripitaka and the Devadasanga Dharma Pravakanani in Taiwan. He did not say, much more brilliant. He dared not put it this way. He only said much more varieties, meaning that many people have different opinions. There is even separate transmission outside of the teachings. That is the Chan school. He said, as for sadhana's ritual text, are you willing to teach everything openly and selflessly? There you go. The last sentence revealed his true intention. You must understand one thing: if you want to learn something, you must request it from a guru master. For example, if you think that a guru master's teachings are very thorough and deep, completely different from others, and so he or she can provide you with the practical training you really need, you must respect this guru master. Do not threaten, force, or goad them into teaching you. This is inappropriate. This person, I guess he is more of an exoteric Buddhist practitioner. The way he wrote this sentence showed that he basically does not know the Buddhist Holy Dharma. If you understand the Buddhist Holy Dharma, you will know that it has been stated in many Buddhist sutras. You must pay your respect to virtuous teachers. You must request for the Holy Dharma. You must request virtuous teachers to turn the wheel of the Holy Dharma. You must request virtuous teachers to stay in the world. You should have done all these rather than just left a comment like this on Facebook. There was no mention of the two guru masters' names, who were only referred to as you. The comment also said, many of your Dharma teachings are readily available in Taiwan. There was almost a hidden meaning behind, there is no need for you to teach them again. But he dared not make it clear. If he dared, he would say, the theory teachings of the Tripitaka and the Devadasanga Dharma Pravakanani in Taiwan are much more brilliant. That is, what you teach is not as brilliant as theirs. There is no need for you to continue teaching. He dared not say so. He only said that what they have now is already sufficient. What did this sentence mean exactly? It was the first step to goad someone into doing something. In other words, he found that my exoteric Buddhism teachings, the parts which can be made public, although also available in Taiwan with a wide variety of theories, are much deeper and more practical. But he devalued my teachings by calling them pure theories. In fact, if you have not practiced and realized to a certain level, you cannot explain the most thorough teachings in the Diamond Sutra. It is even more impossible for you to teach the Great Perfection, because the Great Perfection requires a lot of actual practices. You may not be able to interpret the Heart Sutra if you have not reached a certain level. You will not be able to tell what the oral pith instructions are. You cannot explain the state described in the Heart Sutra. It is impossible for you to explain it unless you have reached a certain level, which depends on your experiences in actual practices. You can only explain it when you have reached that level. Otherwise, you may not even be able to translate it. This is the reason why it has been translated into, speaks of. Nevertheless, this person tried to goad us into disclosing all the teachings of esoteric Buddhism. As I said, these esoteric Buddhist ritual texts can be purchased everywhere at a very low price in Taiwan. You can buy one for 200 new Taiwan dollars. But after reading it, you can only interpret the text literally. This person has no experiences in actual practices. He does not understand the Buddhist Holy Dharma at all. That is why he asked this question. How could he possibly have any experience in actual practices? He cannot understand how to practice by simply reading the ritual text. Even if he finds many guru masters to teach him, most of them will only teach him to visualize, according to the literal interpretation. How can they provide him with any core teachings of neither existence nor voidness? No way. He must be thinking, you are capable of teaching these. It would be great if you are the one who teaches these rituals, since you will be able to disclose all the oral pith instructions and contents of actual practices. This way, I do not need to take refuge from anyone and be their disciple. I can even be the guru master of others. Then, I can get everything I want. But he had forgotten one thing: you cannot goad me into teaching these Dharma practices. Why? I refused to teach them, not because of greed, hatred, or ignorance. On the other hand, out of his greed, hatred, and ignorance, this person tried to goad others into teaching them, hoping that I would disclose some of the ritual texts. He emphasized, are you willing to teach selflessly? In other words, you are selfish now. You did not disclose the esoteric Buddhist rituals and the ritual texts, which means you are selfish. You did not disclose to all but your disciples only, which means you are selfish. His use of the word, selflessly, was an attempt to goad me into doing something. You say that you are so great. You have given such a detailed explanation about compassion. You must think you are full of compassion. Is it not true? Since you are so compassionate, you should disclose all those ritual texts. He did not understand one thing. It is not that I am unwilling to make it public, but that I cannot make it public. It will be harmful to you. What harm will it do to you? All karmic creditors, especially those with high energy in the spiritual realm, know how to read your mental consciousness. As such, whenever we impart any Dharma practices to our disciples, we have to tie off the territory, that is, to seal all the doors to the spiritual realm. We have to teach them how to tie off the territory, too. In this way, those karmic creditors cannot read the mental consciousness. They will not know the steps of their Dharma practices and their behavioral formulas and programming in the aggregate of perceptions. That is equal to encryption when sending messages on a computer. If your computer has been hacked by others, you will lose all your data when they know all the procedures of how you protect your computer. When your data is stolen, others will know your weaknesses and how to harm you. All karmic creditors, especially those in the spiritual realm, know these methods. Even if they do not know how to read minds or are weak in this respect, they would come to watch what you are doing and peek at your ritual texts. They can see the texts whenever you open them. The powerful ones can see the texts even if you do not open them. Well, think carefully. If they know all the steps you will go through to reach the Buddha's Pure Land or enter the Dharma realm, step 1, step 2, step 3. And step 4, or if they know that you like Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara the most, when you die and enter the spiritual realm, they will turn into the things you like most and lure you into their traps. In short, all our teachings cannot be made public. Once they are made public, for example, he asked me to disclose all teachings. Suppose there are 1,000 ritual texts in the world, and I choose 100 of them to teach, which will take a long time. To teach the Diamond Sutra alone has already taken such a long time. Suppose that I have taught all of them publicly. This means that 100 escape routes are known to all the karmic creditors in the universe. They can target each of their debtors who have not paid back the debt and catch them when they die. If the debtor is a Dharma practitioner, they might not be able to pin him down. But since they knew precisely his escape route, the procedure to get away, they could easily crack it and catch him. In other words, all the Dharma methods and ritual texts cannot be taught publicly. And it requires a lot of efforts and preparation to be made before teaching them. I know that many guru masters never make these efforts and preparation. So, many secrets are being leaked. What are the consequences of leaking secrets? All the disciples you teach will be caught by their karmic creditors. It means that all the Dharma methods you have taught will become invalid. Why is this so? Because those guru masters are not yet up to standard. They do not know these procedures. They do not understand them because they have not practiced the Dharma to that level, thus unaware of the spiritual realm's complexity. Actually, it is very easy to understand. Like your bank's passcode, the one you use to transfer money online, it is the same as your escape route. Will you reveal it to others online so they know how to log into your account? Of course not. How can you teach others to enter your aggregate of perceptions to catch you? You will never do that. The aggregate of perceptions is like your bank account. Would you allow people to withdraw the money from your account as they like? Would you let them know how much black karma you have that they can use to trap you? And how much white karma you have that they need to block to stop you from running away? Would you let them know your bank account so they can withdraw any amount of money they like? Of course not. Aggregate of perceptions is very important, and we must keep it safe. Why do we say this person does not know the Buddhist holy Dharma at all? Firstly, he does not know how to honor the teachers and respect their teachings. He does not know how to respect virtuous teachers, in accordance with the Buddhist holy Dharma. But he was desperate to learn those teachings and knew that what I teach now is good, in depth, and practical. If I were the one who taught those practicing ritual texts, it would certainly be more than just literal explanations. It would definitely be something that can help him succeed in his Dharma practice, including all the oral pith instructions and some complete procedures without any omissions. There would be something guaranteed to help him. In order to get what he wanted, he tried to goad me into teaching those Dharma practice methods. I will not teach them, not because I do not fall into his trick. The problem is that I cannot jeopardize the sentient beings by letting the karmic creditors of the whole universe know their escape routes. That is the reason I cannot teach them publicly. But why did I teach the programming in entering into the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood? I have only taught the initial steps of how to initiate the programming. There is a lot that has not been taught. So, it means that you have reserved something? My reservation is not due to greed, hatred, ignorance, and my own selfishness. It is due to the following reasons. Firstly, I have to adhere to precepts. I cannot harm sentient beings. Secondly, I need to protect sentient beings. Esoteric Buddhism means secret, and this is the reason why it needs to be kept secret. It is for a reason not to put sentient beings in jeopardy. So, it cannot be disclosed. There is no point trying to goad me into disclosing it. Then you said there are so many theories in your Dharma teachings. It showed that you do not know the Buddhist holy Dharma. If those are only theories, how can I teach you the Dharma practice that links to your daily life? If those are only theories, how can I provide a profound explanation like this? In other words, there must be some practical elements in it before I can explain it this way. He said there are many theories in your Dharma teachings, but we are not short of them in Taiwan. I wonder if he thinks I have a lot of time. I actually work very hard. Apart from editing the Cantonese lecture videos and uploading them to YouTube for you to watch, I have to do a lot of homework, such as reading lots of Buddhist sutras and considering how to convey their profound meanings to sentient beings. Sometimes, I have to do this for hours and think from different angles. Can those sentient beings understand what I am talking about? What should I say so they can understand? Just thinking about how to make it easy for them to understand takes several hours. Then, I have to do the editing for them to put on YouTube. Then the videos have to be dubbed in Mandarin. It is hard work to dub them in Mandarin. I need to find people to produce the transcripts sentence by sentence, which will then be pasted on the video to create Mandarin subtitles by comparing to the Cantonese contents line by line. After that, I have to watch back the video to check if there are any mistakes with the subtitles to ensure their accuracy, followed by dubbing the video in Mandarin. I have worked so hard to dub the videos in Mandarin to cater for the needs of an audience from several geographical regions, including Taiwan. To my surprise, he left such a comment, of course publicly visible after watching the videos. We're not short of them. I do not know what he meant. Did he mean that there is no need for the lecture videos to be dubbed in Mandarin, so only the Cantonese version is sufficient? But I think they would be very worried then. He demanded that I teach the ritual texts. The consequences might be contrary to his expectations. In future, even those lecture videos taught in Cantonese, which are made public and unrelated to ritual texts, might not be dubbed in Mandarin anymore. The fact is that we truly have made a great amount of effort in dubbing them in Mandarin. So this is why it is said to be the principle of cause and effect. In fact, I am explaining this to remind this person that he has to repent as soon as possible. Because if you belittle those virtuous teachers or guru masters who truly care for you, you will plant an evil seed that will make you fall into the 3 lower realms. I would like to urge this friend and hope that he will repent as soon as possible. This comment he left was sufficient to make him fall into the 3 lower realms. This is what the Buddhist sutras say, not me. I have already deleted this comment from Facebook. So, why can I now explain it here? It is because here I can explain a lot of truth to explain this comment. What if I kept this comment on Facebook? It would be seen by many who do not understand the truth and think that the comment is right. This guru master is too selfish to teach the ritual texts. We have lots of theories in Taiwan already. There is no need to watch her videos. This will cut off many people's good roots. They may only have the opportunity to learn more profound Buddhist holy Dharma after going through many hundreds of millions of kalpas, and now you have taken away their opportunities. Thus the negative karma committed by this believer would be even heavier. In order to avoid aggravating his negative karma and other sentient beings' sufferings, I deleted this comment. So, you must remember, Dharma of absolute meanings means 100% correct Buddhist holy Dharma. It contains emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, enabling you to enter the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood and be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence forever. Examples include the Great Perfection, Heart Sutra, and Diamond Sutra. What is the Dharma of interpretative meanings? It refers to the Buddhist holy Dharma teachings that are not 100% correct. The teachings contain some characteristics of the Dharma nature, such as compassion. But the results will be different depending on the different levels of teachings. Some of the practices will provide a short period of stability for you. But after your merits have been depleted, you will fall again into the cycle of karmic existence. Or, you may have the opportunity to enter the 5 heavens of no returning, and be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. However, if your own mental consciousness wants to leave the 5 heavens of no returning, you have a chance to enter the cycle of karmic existence again. Thirdly, if you can change your Dharma practice from abiding in notions to non-abiding in notions, this will be the better kind of Dharma of absolute meanings. If the Dharma of absolute meanings you teach never leads people into the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions, then in short, it is not the true Buddhist holy Dharma. It is wrong for you to strictly divide the Buddhist holy Dharma into Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni taught the Dharma practices of abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions together. Those abiding in notions must be converted into non-abiding in notions. But if you divide it, just like the Hinayana only teaches the Dharma practices of abiding in notions, or in some sects, only the Dharma practices of abiding in notions are taught. For example, the Pure Land School only teaches people to recite the Buddha's holy name but nothing else. This is called the Dharma practice of abiding in notions, which does not lead people into the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions. These practices are not the true Buddhist holy Dharma. They are incorrect Buddhist holy Dharma. So, you should not separate out the 3 Amitabha Sutras told by the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni to form a sect. This will result in the Dharma teachings being taken out of context, just like a blind person touching an elephant to find its truth, mistaking the part for the whole. This becomes an incorrect Buddhist holy Dharma. No matter which Dharma method you teach the people, whether it is reciting the Buddha Amitabha's holy name, reciting mantras, visualizing deities, or any other Dharma practices of abiding in notions, you must eventually lead people into the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions. If you lack this element in your teachings and insist on dividing the Buddhist holy Dharma taught by the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni to form 3 or even more sects, this is a sin, and it is wrong. Why do we have to teach the Buddhist holy Dharma of abiding in notions? This is to first appeal to people's desire and then lead them into the Buddha's wisdom. That is, it is to use something you can easily get hold of to lead you into the door of Buddhism. You say you cannot understand how to practice Dharma without a Buddha statue. You cannot learn how to practice Dharma without the image of Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. Then I will give you an image of Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara to look at. After you have learned for a while, you still have to go into the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions in order to help yourselves thoroughly. If not, it is semblance Dharma, not the Buddhist holy Dharma. For example, you only teach others to recite Buddha Amitabha's holy name and claim it to be the invincible method. I just received a mail, it is yet another hate mail. What did it say? You actually know nothing about the knack of Pure Land. Our knack of Pure Land is the best. One can achieve success by only reciting the Buddha's holy name. The achievement is equivalent to attaining Buddhahood. You can accomplish anything by just reciting the Buddha's holy name. But you say that one has to go deep to achieve the attainment. He said that some people refuted him. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni preached the Buddhist holy Dharma for 49 years. The Buddhist sutras are as vast as an ocean. Now you teach others that they can accomplish anything by just reciting the Buddha's holy name. There is no need for them to learn anything else. You are wrong. He said he scolded the believers back. Of course not. How did he rebuke those believers? He had written a book and sent me a copy. I can see what is written in the book. This is how he rebuked them. He said that he reproved and refuted those believers. In fact, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni only taught people to recite the Buddha Amitabha's holy name, of which is the most incomprehensible and profound teaching. One can attain Buddhahood or achieve anything by simply reciting the Buddha Amitabha's holy name. It is invincible. He said, why did the Lord Buddha have to preach the Buddhist holy Dharma for 49 years? It is because all you sentient beings are stupid and ignorant. You do not know how good it is to recite the Buddha's holy name. You do not believe the great effect it has. You do not believe in the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, who was forced to teach 84,000 Buddhist Dharma methods to meet your requirements. If you only like deeper teaching, I will make it deeper. This is what he said in the book. I received a copy and was asked to learn from it. How extraordinary his dialectic is. What an eye-opener for me. He distorted the facts and talked speciously. Even children's dialectic methods are better than his. How could he explain it like this? The truth is that Lord Buddha Shakyamuni imparted different teachings to cater for different levels of sentient beings. For example, some people were illiterate. You must understand that women were not allowed to study in India at that time. They were considered lowly creatures and sold as slaves or maid servants. Of course, they were not allowed to study. At that time, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni attempted to save the queen and her court ladies, all of whom were women. They said they did not know anything, including how to visualize. Under the circumstances, the Lord Buddha could only teach them to recite the Buddha Amitabha's holy name. However, the Lord Buddha also taught the Sutra of Visualization of the Buddha of Infinite Life to avoid people having the misconception that it is sufficient to recite the Buddha's holy names. You must also complement it with the visualization practice to succeed. You cannot succeed by reciting the Buddha's holy names alone. Then there is a mistranslation of visualization into recitation. This is how the Buddhist holy Dharma has been distorted by you sentient beings. These are all wrong and fake. This is because the knowledge level of people at the time was low. They would not understand if you taught more. As such, it was better to teach them to recite the Buddha Amitabha's holy name. It was better than nothing. The expectation was that they would concentrate on reciting until they were confident and able to recite without any disturbance of thoughts one day. It would be great if they could connect with the Buddha Amitabha. Then they could be saved. This is why the Lord Buddha taught this Dharma method. It is not because the sentient beings were too stupid to believe in the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, who said it is only necessary to recite the Buddha Amitabha's holy name. So, the Lord Buddha had to teach other 84,000 methods. This is not the reason. He first taught the Dharma practice of abiding in notions according to your different levels. Then he taught the Dharma practice of non-abiding in notions. There are only two types of Dharma practice, abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions. Therefore, there are more and more people or sects who have gone astray. There are many so-called Dharma masters or instructors who know nothing about the Buddhist holy Dharma. They preach to persuade people that they need not know anything other than reciting the Buddha Amitabha's holy name. That is the invincible and best Dharma practice. All other methods are wrong, trouble-seeking, and unnecessary. They are too abstruse to understand and difficult to explain. So, they taught people to avoid learning all other methods. As a result, their teachings lack the core content of the Buddhist holy Dharma. They will get sentient beings into trouble. Those teachings are not the Buddhist holy Dharma because they will never lead people into non-abiding in notions. They will continue to suffer in the cycle of karmic existence forever. Therefore, any method that cannot guide the Dharma practitioners to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence or into the Dharma of absolute meanings is called semblance Dharma. It resembles the Buddhist holy Dharma, but it is not the true Buddhist holy Dharma. It is false teaching. Simply speaking, it is nothing but sophistry some people use to deceive sentient beings for the sake of their own sect's prosperity. The treasury of Dharmadhatu is an essence of oral pith instructions for practicing the great perfection. It was written by Kungkyun Longchen Rabjam, one of the great lineage masters of the Red Sect Nyingma school who specialized in the Great Perfection practice. It is a collection of the oral pith instructions from the 17 Dzogchen Tantras. Which are the oral pith instructions of 17 uncommon, where uncommon refers to their uniqueness of the Nyingma kinds of actual practice methods. It can help us to restore our Dharma nature, or bodhicitta. There is a verse in the section on the causes and effects beyond diligent Buddhist Dharma practice. It comes from nowhere, and it goes nowhere. It concerns the Dharma nature. It states that if we endeavor to cultivate the Dharma nature, there must be realizing and knowing. This ability to realize and know comes from nowhere and goes nowhere. It resides nowhere throughout the vast realm of the Dharma nature. It will not live in any position within the Dharma realm, meaning it is all-pervasive. It will not come from any point, nor will it go to any point. Neither coming nor going. In short, these two sentences tell us about the all-pervasiveness of Dharma nature. Thus, enlightenment solves the meaning of the three realms. If you understand the two sentences I am talking about now, you can understand all the meanings or consciousness in the three realms, and be liberated from them. This is the core and the meaning of Tathagata. That is, neither coming nor going, or neither coming nor going out. You can interpret any form or appearance as equivalent to residing in a certain place, and you are trapped at a certain point by that form or appearance. If you abide in notions, you cannot be all-pervasiveness. Therefore, it is stated in the Diamond Sutra about the real Dharma practice. How do you prove that you have achieved success or met the required standards in your Dharma practice? It relies on this statement to tell you what the true existence of the entire Dharma realm, or the three realms, is. All forms are nothing but illusions. Everything is impermanent and always illusory. If you see those forms and consider them to be non-forms, if you know and understand all these forms are actually not what they appear, and their true existence is not like this but illusory, you are seeing the Tathagatas. That is, if you know and understand as it truly is, you have restored some abilities of your realizing and knowing, of perfect enlightenment. In summary, it is clearly stated in the Avatamsaka Sutra, chapter on the preaching of teachings at the cloud assembly of all the countless bodhisattva in the Sayama Celestial Palace, section 16. All three aspects of the mind, Buddha, and sentient beings are of no differences. We should integrate them all to become oneness. Otherwise, we will be staying in the three realms of the dualistic or multiplistic states. We will still have a subject that is able to do things and an object that is what is being done. So, we must remember when visualizing emptiness, some might treat emptiness as a kind of notion, form, or appearance, and visualize that everything is empty. So, you must remember not to cling to any notions, forms, or appearances in your visualization practice, including the notion, form, or appearance of emptiness. Even emptiness itself is also a kind of notion, form, or appearance. You must not visualize the notion, form, or appearance of emptiness. What should you visualize? You should only visualize the characteristics of emptiness. You should use intrinsic awareness, or Rigpa, in mind nature, as the core of your Dharma practice. Do not forget to initiate the programming in entering into the Dharma realm, as I have taught you. All these are the oral pith instructions. This is the end of today's lecture. There will be a Lambana assembly on the 19th of August when we will carry out a Dharma practice called 100 Peaceful and Wrathful Deities of the Bardo State. We will impart their mantra, tribute, and thamp offering ritual. We will also lead you through the visualization to connect with the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities of the Bardo State. Apart from taking you through the visualization, we will also use our visualization ability to assist you in making the connection successfully. Why do we need to do this? If we want to increase our success rate, we must do some preparations while we are alive. One of them is to make some connections, especially in aggregate of perceptions. It is necessary to link some of our programs in the aggregate of perceptions with these 100 peaceful and wrathful deities. This will protect us from falling into the three lower realms so quickly when we die. Once it is beginning to take shape, it would be very difficult to save you. You have to be killed and die one more time before your mental consciousness can be liberated again. The purpose of this visualization is to protect you and make it easier to save you. In addition, we will be carrying out 2 esoteric practices of 100 peaceful and wrathful deities of the Bardo state, from the great net of magical illusions Narak Dong Truk. 1. The essence of the most profound meaning, and 2. The distinct practice of arousing peace and wrath to offer blessings to both the deceased and those who are still alive, to whom you have dedicated the tablets of the lotus seats and tablets of longevity, respectively, at the Dudgeon Buddhist Association International. We will also offer blessings with sin-cleansing nectars, recite names and dedicate merits to those believers who take part in the Dharma event. When will we lecture on the 11th episode of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series? It will not be given during the Ulambana Dharma Assembly. The Dharma event in August requires us to perform many Dharma practices and guide you through the visualization. So, there will not be enough time to give the lecture. The lecture on the 11th episode will be given at the Bodhisattva KSI Tagava Smoke Offerings Dharma event held on the 9th of September. The content will include the visualization programming in daily life, the oral pith instructions of the Great Perfection, on how to initiate the programming in entering into the Dharma realm, and the oral pith instructions of the visualization practice of bodhicitta, from the treasury of Dharma Dhatu. Furthermore, I will also talk about comparisons among the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices by the Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, and Great Perfection. What are the key merits of smoke offerings? We, the sentient beings in the human realm, or even the animals you see in the animal realm, have material bodies which are made of relatively heavy physical structures. As such, the food we eat, such as plants and meats, to sustain life is also relatively heavy. However, the material structure in the spiritual realm is relatively sparse. What do the sentient beings in the spiritual realm eat to replenish their energy? They mainly do so by sniffing smoke. So, what merits do smoke offerings have exactly? The smoke offerings can be divided into sang and tsur. No matter which heavenly god you're offering to, such as those non-vegetarian gods from the heavens in the desire realm Kamaloka who live closer to us, if you offer them some smoke with meaty taste which they like, they will feel that you are sincere. We now also provide our offerings to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and do almsgiving to those sentient beings in the spiritual realm who do not eat meat. Adding the two together is considered the perfect and complete upper offering and lower giving. What merits you have when you make such offerings? As we are now in the 3 realms, what is the operating rule of the 3 realms? It is the law of causes and effects. Once you have planted a cause, you will naturally have the result. If you do not plant that cause, you will not get that result. It is as simple as that. But what about the Diamond Sutra? It teaches you how to enter the Dharma realm, so what it says is different. Because the Diamond Sutra is concerned with the Dharma realm. What is the operating rule of the Dharma realm? It is the law of non-attainment. It does not have any shape or form. It is a realm where only the Dharma nature exists. Therefore, the operating rules of these 2 realms are completely different. We have to follow the Diamond Sutra in our Dharma practice now because we aim to enter the Dharma realm in the future. However, do not abide in notions means that we should not be attached to any form or appearance. We are now doing the smoke offerings. Does it mean we are being attached to the merits of smoke offerings? That is not the case. Why? Because you are now in the 3 realms, which means that you will interact with many sentient beings or objects of different forms and appearances. You need to deal with your relatives and friends who might not believe in Buddhism. When they need your help, will you turn them down for the reason of do not abide in notions? Of course you will not. Because it is the law of causes and effect that operates in the world you live in now. It determines whether you are able to practice the Dharma and whether you will face some obstacles, such as getting ill or being harassed or harmed by your relatives or friends. Under the operation of the law of causes and effects, any behavior you do, whether you have done something appropriately when interacting with others, will determine your retributions. So, when we are in the path of Dharma practice, we should not practice only one single method. For example, we only practice do not abide in notions taught by the Diamond Sutra, and do nothing else. It should not be interpreted as such. Instead, we will try to do anything associated with virtuous causes and effects. But we will not cling to the idea that we must plant virtuous causes and not do anything unrelated to virtuous causes. On the other hand, we will certainly not do anything associated with an evil cause. But if we see someone planting an evil cause, do we need to cling to this or even scold them so that we can plant some virtuous causes by giving them a lesson? When we realize their reaction is fierce, we shall not cling to this either. For example, in order to plant some virtuous causes for ourselves and help that person not to plant evil causes, we must take a tough attitude towards them, force them to listen to us, and nag them every day to accept what we say. We will never do this. This means that when we live in the three realms, we have to cultivate our minds so that we do not abide in notions according to the Diamond Sutra. At the same time, we also have to do things related to virtuous causes to help sentient beings and ourselves. In other words, we will do anything for a virtuous cause but without any attachment. The smoke offering, for example, is to make offerings to Buddhas. What is the benefit of making offerings to Buddhas? Of course, it is to increase your own merits. What is the benefit of increasing your own merits? Your Dharma practice can go more smoothly. There will be more auxiliary forces. Then you may ask, is this the same as attachment? No, because you will not force yourselves to make offerings to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas by doing something you should not or cannot do. You do it following the causes and conditions. You do what you should. For instance, the smoke offerings Dharma events held at the Daejeon Buddhist Association International not only do smoke offerings but also provide Dharma teachings, which will be beneficial to you in terms of mind nature as well as merits. You must attend, of course. But if you're unwell, will you insist on attending? You will not. This is called following the causes and conditions. You must not be attached to having to do it. But if you follow the causes and conditions and have the ability, you will do it to add one more virtuous cause. This is a way to deal with things that we are now practicing the Dharma in the three realms and be compatible with the Diamond Sutra. That is, you cannot just do nothing just because you are practicing. Do not abide in notions as per the Diamond Sutra. Then you will fall into a kind of bias, deviating from certain things and focus on only one side. Then, if you fail in your Dharma practice in the end and you have not planted any merits, you will be in serious trouble. You will not enter the Dharma realm, and there is no virtuous karma to support you to go to better places. How miserable can that be? So, we need to do both, as long as we do not cling to it and force ourselves to do it. We should follow the causes and conditions. If we manage to do it, we will rejoice at this great endeavor. If we do not manage to do it, we will not blame others or even curse the heavens and the earth. We will not plant any evil karma as an accompaniment to virtuous karma. It is a Dharma practice called keeping balance with the middle way, not biased towards either side or being paranoid on existence or voidness. Therefore, we must do the smoke offerings. Let me give an example. Why do smoke offerings generate great merit? It is because you can make these offerings to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as well as heavenly gods in the spiritual realm. You can also help all your deceased relatives and friends who are still wandering in the spiritual realm and need help. Even for those who have already taken rebirth, you can request those heavenly gods to whom you make offerings to protect them. They will go and protect them. Therefore, smoke offerings are a very direct way to make offerings. They are needed because the heavenly gods need to smell certain scents or fragrances. What kinds of incense scent do they like to smell in particular? For example, the Nagas prefer to sniff some special Nagas medicines. Some heavenly gods can get ill, too. But their material bodies are sparse, so their illnesses are slightly different from those in the human realm. When they're ill, they need to sniff some smoke-containing medicines to heal. If their physical structure is sparser, they need to sniff this medicated smoke even more, which contains some special medicines that have been subjected to long-term Dharma practices with visualization elements. The smoke will make them feel very comfortable after sniffing. Such offerings are like providing some expensive medicines to your friends in this world. These medicines are rare and precious, which cannot be purchased easily. Yet you give them such medicines. Would they not be grateful to you? It is the law of causes and effects that operates now. You make offerings to those heavenly gods and heal their illnesses with medicines they cannot get. They will be very happy and then requite your kindness according to the law of causes and effects. How do they requite your kindness? As I have taught you earlier, you will normally write down your same wishes on the back of all 6 sheets of papers. The 5-colored paper wind horses and the mantra wheel of liberation through hearing. As long as you write down your wishes, they will understand that you make offerings to them in the hope that they can requite you through this way. They will do their best to help you. When your relatives and friends do not have the merits to accept their help, but if you have such merits and invite the heavenly gods to help them, they will have the merits then. It means that you have dedicated your merits to your friends and relatives. These are all causes and effects, after all. You plant virtuous causes that your friends and relatives do not plant and then dedicate the merits to them. You even pray and request some capable sentient beings to help them. These are all causes and effects. This can really help your friends and relatives, so you must make smoke offerings. To give an example, I had a disciple whose father was admitted into a hospital lately. He was still in agony after admission despite the painkillers. His whole body was aching and uncomfortable. My disciple came to the Buddhist center here and made the lamp offering in person. He usually makes smoke offerings regularly. But this time, he came specially to make a lamp offering and prayed in front of the Buddha because he was worried that his father was ill and about to undergo an operation. Not only this disciple told me about the extraordinary experiences of praying in front of our Buddhist altar here, many others who are not my disciples also told me the same thing many times. They all told me that they have been to many Buddhist centers but none of them was as special as ours. The atmosphere here is totally different, very pure, peaceful, and unique. They cannot describe it, but they can feel that it is a powerful, pure, and peaceful electromagnetic field. They can really feel it. I explained to them, you are not the only one who says this. Our Buddhist center is unique because we pay great attention to the observation of precepts. Therefore, it has a kind of power of precepts. The precept itself is pure and peaceful. The term precept means cool in Sanskrit. So, a Buddhist center where disciples well disciplined by their guru masters and observe the precepts strictly will form a magnetic field with very pure and peaceful powers of precepts. This magnetic field can help many sentient beings, such as diffusing some of their disasters. This is because the magnetic field, being an agglomeration of such pure and peaceful powers, is respected by many heavenly gods, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Whenever you have a request or a wish, they will try to lend a helping hand. As such, it gathers many auxiliary forces. So I will usually remind them to remember to pray before Buddhas. As soon as this disciple of mine finished praying before the Buddhist altar, he telephoned his father. His father told him an extraordinary phenomenon that was difficult to explain. He said, I smelt some smoke that was somewhat irritating my eyes. I think this must be good stuff, so I sniffed it vigorously. To my surprise, after I inhaled the smoke, my whole body that was aching just now becomes very comfortable at once. His father then remained at ease while waiting for the operation. After the operation, he was fine and slowly recovered. The disciple then wrote me an email to report this phenomenon, which I would like to share with you and explain why it happened. If you make a lot of smoke offerings, those who are always hungry and cannot get to smell some smoke to heal their illnesses would be extremely grateful since you help them get it. It is the same as when you are very hungry or ill, someone offers you a few bowls of rice and provides some precious medicines for you to get well, you will be very grateful to this person. Similarly, if you have lent your hand to someone in distress, they will be particularly grateful to you. As such, they will definitely find a way to help you when you have something to ask for or when you are in danger. The meaning of causes and effects is reciprocity, using the same kind of things. As they are in the spiritual realm, what do they do best? The smoke. When they want to help you and want to do so most directly, they will also use smoke. That is the reason why my disciple's father smelt the smoke. Of course, it was because he came here to pray. It is equally effective for some who do not make smoke offering but come here to pray. Many have told me this, but I will not mention it more. I talk about this case because it is special. In order to meet the requests of some sentient beings and help more sentient beings, we have now changed our opening time to 10:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Tuesday to Saturday. I told you this because the powers of precepts and sumayas in forming a protective shield of the electromagnetic field here are unique. Many had told me so. I did not say anything to them in particular. It is them who told me. So, in the future, if you want to request something or need to do some prayers urgently for your friends and relatives, like my disciple who was worried about his father's operation, you can come here to pray before the Buddhist altar during the opening times. I think there will be pure and peaceful power of aspirations to help you and your friends and relatives. This is what I want to say to you in particular. We will now continue to complete the dedication of merits.